Halloween
Forever.
Hey, the final girls. I got a question for you.
What is that?
What's that?
Well, it's actually less of a question. It's actually more of a fun fact. Did you know that scientists have been studying the effect of cannabis on seabirds?
Oh, really?
Yes. They've left no turn unstoned.
Wow.
Yes.
Welcome to another episode of Halloween is Forever. I'm Steve, and Brian is gone.
That's spooky.
Unfortunately, this week Brian has made some terrible flight errors, and that he doesn't check his tickets properly and is stranded himself in Nashville. So he's not going to make the showdown this week, and I don't think that bodes well for his chances of winning. But our other two guests have arrived. We are joined this week by the Final Girls podcast, Sarah and Kelly. Hello, ladies. Feel free to introduce yourselves.
Hello. Kelly, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having us. First of all, we love doing this kind of thing. So fun. I'm like a first time podcaster, so I get really excited about like podcasting all the time right now. So I'm Kelly, one half of Final Girls. Our podcast discusses the final girl trope in horror movies, which is basically, you know, if you watch a lot of horror, it's like the last woman standing who's going head to head with the menace. And we just discuss a different final girl every week. Episodes drop on Wednesday. So we just did Ripley.
Right on. Yeah.
I'm Sarah. I'm the other half. And Kelly covered it all. So yeah, we're having a lot of fun. I think we're 15 episodes in. So we're still pretty green, but we're really having fun, meeting some really cool people, having some really fun conversations. And I think, you know, the final girl trope is just something that everyone's super fascinated in. So, you know, people are really, we're just having really great conversations. So yeah, it's been fun. And we're excited to meet all these new people. So thank you for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Yeah, I listened to an episode of your show. I was listening to the Companion episode.
Oh, I love Companion.
Yeah, good movie. I think everybody should go see that. You know, especially I think it's now going to be coming to Max streaming within the next week or so.
I heard that. Yeah.
I think it's actually currently streaming on Amazon.
It's on like premium VODs right now. I think
I'm pretty sure it might be free on Amazon right now. So someone can correct me, but I only know that because I had just bought it, and then my fiance was like, "Oh, why did you buy Companion? It's like right here," and I was like, "Well, I would have bought it anyway." So,
but yeah, I was listening to your show, and one of you mentioned how it was mentioned one of you went to film school and the other one just loves movies. So, and I was like, oh, that's a lot like our dynamic because I went to film school and Brian just loves movies. So
love that.
Awesome. Yes.
It always makes a good conversation because Kelly can bring like this serious, like sharp analysis that things that I would not have noticed. And she also, well, she also like does like this really great background research on the production and the cast and crew. So that's been really fun. So I get to ride those coattails, which is nice.
Right on. While we're here, why don't you just give out your like social media handles and where everybody can find you and where everybody can find your podcast?
Yeah, so we are, you can find our website at www.final-girls.com. And because we're still so new, we don't always show up on searches on some of the podcast platforms, but, and there's a bunch of other podcasts that have Final Girls in the name. So, but we're getting better. We're showing up more every episode. So that's the best place to find us if you can't find us on the search, just go to our website. We have all the links to the big platforms. Otherwise, you can find us on Instagram at Final Girls the Podcast and on Blue Sky at Final Girls Podcast.
Right on. And as always, if you want to find Halloween Is Forever, just search Halloween Is Forever. That'll get you all the social medias like Instagram and, Blue Sky and, a dead X that doesn't get posted to anymore and Facebook.
A graveyard.
Yeah, a graveyard. I'm squatting the site, because maybe one day it won't suck.
Yeah.
maybe one day it'll turn around.
I heard someone was trying to. Yeah, and I heard someone was trying to buy it, like OpenAI or something like that, for like $33 billion or something.
I don't necessarily know that that's better, but
yeah, I get that.
That sounds more like a shell game of some sort. But actually, that dum-dum just sold it to his other AI company. Is what it was.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, he's giving himself some sort of tax shelter,
of course,
by selling it to his other company. So it's just I
like the name Dum Dum too.
Yeah, it's
accurate.
It's just it's another way to describe it. Just a cringy dum dum that's ruining
Dum Dum. I'm so gonna use that phrase. I love it.
I'm powered by like old man phrases of just like Egypt dum dum.
Egypt, love it.
Yeah. But go check out Halloween Is Forever, and as always, we're going to be posting our voting block for our May Showdown coming up this week. And just to remind everybody, we picked those categories last week, but we'll be discussing one of these 3 topics coming up in May. Depending on how the audience votes, we'll be discussing either Pests and Vermin, Mall Madness, which is, of course, any films that occur within a mall. Chopping Mall is obviously on Brian's to-do list, so he really wants to get that movie in. And what I'm rephrasing to the best of the worst of the Elm Street series. In the past, we've done the Elm Street films, and we've decided the first Elm Street movie isn't allowed to be entered into any showdowns because it's too good.
Yeah.
Like, that's too obvious.
Sure.
And we did Dream Warriors, which is the second best one. So now we're just down to the dregs of 4 through 6 and the remake. So it's not,
that sounds fun.
we don't have much left. So it's just like picking, the best of the worst of that. So one of those 3 topics will come out on top for voting this week. So be on the lookout for that.
I think there's a Fear Street that takes place in a mall. I think it's the first one that takes place. Yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah, it's either the first one or the last one, because it's Jillian Jacobs is running through the mall with them.
Yeah.
Because she gets recruited with the teens. But Mall Madness, Pests and Vermin, which is the one I'm voting for, and Best of the Worst of Elm Street. So be on the lookout for that. And as a reminder, if you log on to patreon.com/HalloweenIsForever and you become a patron, you get an extra vote in those types of deals. But you also get the exclusive monthly podcast, which right now we're working on 90s is Forever, which is our comedy podcast, which is looking at just bad 90s comedies that a lot of people have forgotten because they weren't funny then, so they're definitely not funny now. Episode 1 was Silence of the Hams, just to really kick it off with, just a horror movie related one. And April will see us looking at a gnome named Norm from 1990. So you have all that to look forward to on patreon.com, plus reviews and recos, and you get access to the Discord. So log on to that. Moving on, though, we have drinks. We do drinks on this show. I know Sarah went and got a beer, and I know Kelly's drinking on some coffee. If any of you would like to go first and present what you're drinking on tonight.
So I grabbed a beer. I'm not a big beer drinker, but I've been drinking non-alcoholic beer, which I'm absolutely loving. And this is the Atletica Mexican style copper, which they sell Athletic at, Trader Joe's and stores, but they have so many great flavors on their website that are just for like subscribers. And this one just gets me every time. I love it so much. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Our former co-host Meg, she actually moved from Pittsburgh up to where the brewing facility for Athletic is. And
cool.
She has since been promoted to head brewer of Athletic Brewing.
What? So, that's
very
so
cool.
Yeah.
Well, tell her I love her Athletica.
She'll be glad to hear it.
Yeah, I get 5 cases of it a month. That's how much I like it. So she's doing something right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know what? I'll follow you right along, Sarah, because I'm actually drinking something from a brewery she used to work at. Is out here in, I don't know that this comes out to you guys' way on the West Coast, but we have a brewery, Southern Tier Brewery. It's out of New York, and we get a lot of it in Pittsburgh though. And it is their Irish cream stout, which is just like kind of a regular Irish stout, but this one's a little bit sweeter. It has, it's supposed to be more towards that Bailey's type of feel, but yeah, Meg actually got her start working there as working in the cellar, just kind of moving casks and stuff around, and then moved up as a brewer, later on in her career, and now is head brewer at Athletica. So yeah, her Athletic. So yeah, it's just kind of funny. We're drinking 2 things from the Bog Hags history.
I'm a fan. I love that.
Well, I will apologize to both beer enthusiasts and coffee enthusiasts for this. First of all, I am a big beer person, but I just don't happen to have any on hand right now because I already drank it. So not today, not before this recording. But I am drinking a very fancy Nespresso pod that is Intenso flavored. I used to work at a couple coffee shops, and so I know like all the right, quote unquote, right ways to do coffee. I'm just too lazy. Sure. So Nespresso will do in a pinch, and I drink a lot of it. So it's
right on.
Pretty good.
Do either of you have like brewery recommendations from your side of the country?
I do. I'm pretty sure this goes all over the place. I really love Stone Brewing.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, I know it's kind of a standard one. It's really good. It's popular for a reason. But I also love their logo, and so I have a whole bunch of Stone merchandise. So yeah.
Right on. Yeah, we get a lot of Stone out this way.
Oh yeah.
I'm a big fan of their Chocovesa. Just because like it's a really dry like Mexican stout. So yeah,
they have this one called Fear Movie Lions. That is my favorite. It's an IPA.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty strong, but it's not super that's my favorite lately. So
yeah, I've seen it in stores. I just never have picked it up. Like I don't know. I'm over IPAs now.
I get it. I know it got too trendy for a while, and then it like the market was oversaturated. But it's still kind of my thing. Yeah. It's one of those like I was into it for a little bit, and I just kind of fell out, and then I was back into it, and it's like when they crossed to like hazies and started getting too soft and everything, I was like, no. I'm used to the old bitter West Coast style. Oh yeah,
IPAs,
no, I like full hoppy.
Yeah. But great.
I'm a wine girly, so I can't give you any beer recommendations. Although I will say, I really love Angel City Brewing out here in LA. I mean, I could honestly, like I said, I could take or leave the beer. I'm no shade to them. Everything I've had is great, but they have such a fun brewery. Downtown in the Arts District. So much fun. If you're ever out in LA, definitely check it out. They always have they have a big patio. They have a huge indoor area with like an art gallery and game area. And it's such a blast. So I'll have to go with that one. But I could give you wine recommendations for days.
I don't know anything about wine, so that's pretty cool.
Same.
Yeah.
Wine's always given me a headache, so I do not know much about it.
That's fair.
Yeah. It's like one of the few alcohols I can't drink. Can't drink wine, can't drink tequila. So
those are my 2.
Yeah, don't ask me.
Beer or bourbon for me, so it's the only thing
There
I
you go.
can drink. Like,
Yeah, beer, bourbon, mead, any kind of other whiskeys.
Yeah.
Irish whiskey.
Yes.
I'm down for. Yep, all of it.
Very cool.
All right. Well, now we've got our drinks out of the way. We've got our social medias out of the way. Now it's time to get into the movies. So to remind everybody what we're talking about tonight, we're talking about Creatures from the Deeper. This is our kind of a sequel episode for us. We did Creatures from the Deep before. And so we're doing Creatures from the Deeper. And we've got 4 movies tonight that include Dagon, which is Brian's film from 2001, which I'll present for him. Although this is going to be on him for not showing up. I can't promise that I'm going to present it in the nicest fashion. I can't promise that. Sarah will be talking about Deep Rising from 1998. I have picked Sea Fever from 2019. And then Kelly will be presenting Underwater from 2020. So whatever order you guys would prefer to go in, we can try to hash that out. I'm just going to, put myself into different slots, however you guys want to go. So if Kelly, if you wanted to go first, or if anybody wanted to go first, or if you want me to go first with a movie, I can.
I mean, I would love for you to go first. Just to...
Okay. Can do.
I'll co-sign that. I'll co-sign that.
Okay. So then who would like to go second after me?
I guess I'll go.
We'll go me. Okay. Okay. And then, so how about we go like this? I'll go first with my movie, Sea Fever. And then we'll go Kelly Underwater, Sarah Deep Rising, and then we'll end with Dagon.
That
sounds
fun.
Perfect.
Great. All right, then. Let's jump into Sea Fever from 2019. Had either of you seen this movie before?
Nope. Hadn't even heard of it.
My first time.
Same. I believe I mentioned, when we were picking movies, I was going to take a flying leap on this film and see how much I liked it. Just because I had watched the trailer and I had seen things about it, and it looked pretty cool to me. After watching it, I was rather impressed with it. Mostly because it is built on such a small budget, but it has a whole lot of good things going for it. It seems to be one of those films that punches way above its weight for what they actually accomplish. At its heart, it is just kind of a chamber piece, but you get a lot of wonderful underwater photography. You get some good creature effects, and you get a boat that's on fire. You have to rent. I don't think they're setting it on fire in the middle of the Atlantic. So you have to rent one of those big giant filming pools, and then you have to put the boat in there, and then you have to set the boat on fire. So it did a whole lot for only $2.5 million. I'm down with that.
That is pretty low budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah. It was written and directed by Nisa Hardiman. I wasn't familiar with her as a name, but she has apparently worked on, Jessica Jones, the TV show, and just a bunch of other I'm assuming a lot of this is Irish and UK based television series that I haven't seen. I think the Inhumans was maybe something else. Oh yeah, she worked on the Inhumans, which was another Marvel TV series. So yeah. Other than that, I wasn't completely familiar with a lot of her work. The film itself also features, a heavily, Irish cast, obviously, but there are some notable actors in this. One is Connie Nielsen.
Yeah, that surprised me.
Yeah. She's been in a lot as TV shows. She was also in a Lars von Trier movie, and she was in Justice League and the Wonder Woman films.
Gladiator.
As she was most recently in Gladiator 2 as Lucilla, reprising her role from the original Gladiator. Yeah, Connie Nielsen is in this, and also the other one that kind of like surprised me, but not totally surprised me, but like it was like, oh, there's another name actor, is Olwen. Oh man, I'm gonna butcher her name, but Olwen Ferrer is that's what I'm gonna go with, and I could be wrong. But she's been in a lot of genre work. She does a lot of genre work, and I think most people will recognize her as Mother Marlene from Mandy. But she was also in the recent Texas Chainsaw Massacre film from 2022 that had her take up the role as Sally from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Like the actress. Yeah. Yeah, the actress who originally played Sally in the original movie had passed in 2014. So they just, I guess they enjoyed her work in Sea Fever and Mandy. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, she does a lot of genre work. She was also in The Northman. So yeah, she puts herself out there, and for an older actor, she like really puts herself into the roles pretty heavily, and I enjoy her performance in this as well.
I read that Toni Collette was supposed to play the role of Freya.
I could definitely see that. Me. Yeah, she would have knocked that out of the park.
Yeah.
I just did a write up on our Patreon for Mickey 17, and like she's great in Mickey 17.
I didn't even know she was in that, but
yeah, she's underused is the problem. Like she's in the movie, but like she has a really weird, interesting role, but it's not big enough.
It's like part of the company that does the replication or whatever.
So yeah, more or less. The whole basis of the film is like it's an expedition to take a bunch of people off Earth and then establish a new colony on another planet. And the expedition is led by Mark Ruffalo's character, who is this kind of Trump-esque senator who has been like, more or less exiled from the planet. Like people are sick of him. So he's like, I'm going to start my own thing. And then Toni Collette is like his wife.
Oh, okay.
But she's the more interesting pair of the duo. Because like Mark Ruffalo is just doing Trump. So that's not interesting. Nope. Like we know what that is.
Yeah. Hard pass on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Toni Collette's a lot better. So yeah, but other than that, the film's really good, and I think people should go check it out. But it's also kind of very obvious about itself.
I gotta see that. It's on my list. Yeah,
it's on my list too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good movie. But anyway, back to Sea Fever. This is again, I mentioned at the top. It's a chamber piece. It's just kind of a slow burn chamber piece as well. It's not like some of the other films that we'll talk about tonight, which are very go. This is kind of it's a little bit standard, but I like it a lot because again of what it all accomplishes. So we have a real basic setup of we're introduced to our protagonist Siobhan, who's played by Hermione Corfield. Wasn't really familiar with her, but I think she does a pretty good job in this film otherwise. And her Siobhan is just a grad student doing research on the sea, and so she needs to kind of put in, it feels like one of those things where like when you're in school you have to go out and do like the apprenticeships or internships, and so she has to put in her hours, and she does it on a shipping or on a fishing boat. And so she joins up with this Irish fishing boat, and they take her out into the sea so she can do dives and find anomalies. We get introduced very early to some Irish fishing lore that you can't have redheads, which Siobhan is. You can't have redheads on the boat, which I had to look up. Why? What is that?
I didn't know this was a thing either. I've never heard this.
Yeah. I never heard of it either. It seems like it's a very Irish type of lore.
Oh, there's lots of superstition. Yeah.
Yeah. So looking into it, it seems like it comes from the belief that Cain and Abel from the Bible had red hair, and that Judas had red hair. So those are both bad omens. And there was also just like a belief that the Vikings brought red-haired people to Ireland. And so it's kind of like if you see a red-haired person, watch out, they could be a Viking. And so that's bad luck to see them on the open sea. That's the best I could come up with.
No, I'm glad you looked into that, because I was really curious.
Yeah.
But I just assumed it was some like kind of old wives' tale kind of thing. But it sounds like it goes a lot deeper than that. So
yeah, well, because I mean, when we think of red hair, we think of Irish people as Americans. So it's like, what do you mean you can't have red hair? That's all you have over there is red-haired people.
That's what I was thinking too. They're like so surprised to see her red hair. It's like, don't you see it all the time?
Yeah. What are you upset about?
Yeah.
But yeah, the little bit of reading I did that's what, that's what was yielded to me. So I just went with that. But yeah, Siobhan is told like to hide her hair, under a hat, from the rest of the crew. And like, I guess, okay, from the rest of the crew, but also it's like, it feels like one of those things like hide your hair from God so he doesn't see it.
Yeah.
It's like, what is...
Yeah. Well, they make it into like such a thing. She literally says, I can't change what I am with the hair color thing. And I'm like, people change their hair color all the time. Like, are you talking about something else? Because like, I'm not a natural redhead, even though I am Irish. So I just thought it was kind of a funny line, like out of all the things to die, the hill to die on.
Yeah, it's just one of those bizarre superstition things, which comes into play a lot within the film. Is like this film is built a lot on superstition versus science, which is a kind of a cool thread. But yeah, so it's like her hiding her hair under her hat is like, it feels like she's hiding it more from God from anybody, because if God catches that and goes, aha, a red-haired person on a boat, time to curse them. Let's get them.
Doom them.
We're gonna get them. Yeah. Of course she gets found out by the other crew, and she gets to take her hat off, and they're like, well, I guess we're just going to deal with this now. But yeah, okay, it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
We're people of science, we know it doesn't matter. But yeah, as they're set off to sea, we get to learn a little bit about the crew. We meet just kind of the hands aboard. We meet Jared, who's kind of the ship's captain, Freya, his wife. We meet Omid, who is kind of he works below decks and is, the engineer, keeps the ship running, keeps the engine running, keeps the filtration system running. Sudi and Johnny. And that's basically who we're stuck with for this, hour and a half movie. Just, this small little team.
Quick note about that. My fiance's little brother's name is Omid. I know in this film they pronounce it Omid, that maybe that's how they say it in Ireland, but it's very unusual to see his name or my fiance Nirvan's name in anything. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I looked up the actor and he was actually born where Nirvan's parents were born, in Iran. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, interesting. Neat. Yeah, that's cool. So yeah. But we're following them out to sea, and they have a night where Siobhan and Freya are just kind of looking overboard, and we get to hear more lore and more superstition as they're looking at these bioluminescent lights in the sea. And then the next morning it turns out, oh wait, the boat's stuck. And oh no, the boat's melting as well. I thought this was a really cool just kind of thing that is like, oh, the boat is melting. Why is the boat melting? Oh, it's squeezing out aloe vera everywhere.
Which they touch with their hands. Like, have you ever seen a movie? He just like digs his fingers in. Like, okay, you don't know what that is. That's how
Jared's character is just dangerously dumb because Siobhan is like Omid leads Siobhan to like look at the paneling in the bottom part of the craft, and there's these weird indentations, and they dig into it, and a little bit of aloe vera comes out, and they go, oh, that's gross, what is that? And then Siobhan has the sense to like, oh, get it off my skin, not touch it as much, and then goes to investigate it a little bit. Gerard comes down to find it, and he just digs a whole hand in and rips off part of the boat, and then reveals that it's some sort of sucker attached to the side of the boat. It's either a barnacle or some other thing like that. He's not like threatened by any of that. He's not upset by it. It doesn't like bother him that much to see a barnacle that large.
They're more afraid of the red hair than they are of this.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't set off like big warning bells of like, oh wow, that's the biggest barnacle I've ever seen. How about
and it looks nothing like a barnacle. So
yeah. But they send Siobhan into the water because hey, that's what she's here to study for, isn't it? So into the water with her, and she discovers it's not just a barnacle. It is a big damn sea creature that they have never seen before. It has the barnacles are actually tentacles attached to a much bigger hypno frog type base creature, which flashes its lights to probably like stun. I'm assuming it's one of those things where like it uses its bioluminescence to stun whales and trick and hypnotize them to eat them is how it usually operates.
I thought this design was pretty cool though. I mean, I did write down glowing lamprey sperm tentacles. Which is just kind of my first impression, but it does look, this is an attractive movie overall, and I think the creature has a cool look to it.
Yeah, it is a cool design. They like kind of go out of their way to make the creature like into a mythical almost a little bit, because it does have like this huge bioluminescence to it, which you only usually see on like deep sea creatures, and it looks kind of like a squid, but also I believe Siobhan says it's more kind of like a jellyfish or kind of like an anemone in that family of creatures. So yeah, it's unclear what this is. It's obviously something we've never seen, but yeah, it works as a good creature.
I thought that the aesthetics were, they were really interesting and beautiful. That made it really grim in like a good way. Just thought like all of it just felt like like difficult and grim and hard to watch, but in a way that it was set out to do.
It kind of contrasted it nicely, like the way that the movie starts out with it being like very pretty on the open ocean, and then even the monster being like kind of pretty, and then later, well, I mean, we'll get to it, but like exploding eyeballs and stuff, it just kind of gets you out of nowhere. So I kind of like that.
Yeah. I think an interesting comparison would be like this to Godzilla -1, with all the scenes that are like on the sea for Godzilla -1. Like the sea is inky black and just kind of calls out for death, but like the ship itself is also has like kind of these dark elements to it. And the same with this, like there's just a lot of dark elements to this ship. Like there's hardly any lights below deck. Everything is like barely lit, which is kind of weird, because when we first start to film, we're in kind of the grad student lab with Siobhan and her professor, and it looked like a lot of UK TV to me. Just kind of the way it was lit. I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to like the production value on this as much. I thought the trailer looked better. But then once we get on the ship, it becomes like, I don't know, just something about that specific scene. I don't know if it was like a reshoot or something else. But like, yeah, everything on the ship looks great as like kind of this grim dark. Everything's claustrophobic. Everything is, tightly packed in. So yeah, everything on the ship feels great.
I mean, yeah, that first office scene, I wasn't like, oh, that's a laboratory. My first thought was, oh, that's a tech company, like, because I worked at Microsoft, and it's like you walk into a Microsoft building and like that's what it looks like. Everything is super bright and like pristine and kind of cool. And I will say that I did appreciate Siobhan's line in the scene, which is, I need my own space, I can't do other people. Because I was like, same girl, same.
Yeah, she is very much excited to get out onto the sea and just not be in that sterile space, which I think a lot of people could agree with. Like, yeah, I would like to go on an adventure and not be in a sterile, LED lit office all the time. But yeah, so she discovers, hey, big giant creature. I'm never going back down to that creature. Don't send me to the creature. We got to figure out something else to do. And through this, there's something else is going on, and there is a leak in some places, and it seems like, hey, Johnny might be losing his mind a little bit, and oh no, Johnny is infected with a possible parasite coming off, and it made his eyes explode. Oh no. big problems.
No, that's okay. Like, it's just daily life on a ship, right?
So it does come to be revealed that these creatures are carrying parasites, but not only that just might actually just be the smaller form of them. They start as these tiny microscopic creatures, and as we learn, later in the film, like, they just kind of fight to survive, to be like the number one. So eventually, from these tiny microscopic creatures, you get this, whale-sized creature as they fight and feed on each other, and just kind of like have this, Darwinian exercise between themselves.
There's something so scary about these little tiny parasites to me versus like the big sea creature, because these are so unavoidable, and you almost can't even see them or know that you have them until it's like way too late. It kind of reminded me of in Cloverfield, like, you obviously have the big monster, but then you also have the little like flea monsters that come off. And it's like, sometimes it's those smaller ones that are just much more threatening. The big ones you can usually stay out of the way of.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you can avoid big Cloverfield. You can avoid the big sea tentacle creature. Like, oh yeah, like, if you see the lights in the water, that's how you know, like, that's where that thing is. Don't go near it. Pretty easy.
Don't go there.
But, don't go there. Don't go near it. But yeah, the little parasites getting into everybody and then making their eyes explode, well, you can't avoid that because it just happens by way of touching water.
Yeah, like they go in the shower.
In any open wound, or just in any mucous membrane or in your eyes, and then you're infected, and then it kills you within 36 hours. So unavoidable. The thing I found really interesting about this is this film came out in 2019. Like, it premiered in, I think, September at Fantastic Fest of 2019 in America, and then was released officially in the UK in March of 2020 and April of 2020 back in the US.
Wow.
And it's so fascinating because there are so many COVID themes within this movie.
Quarantine.
Yeah, like superstition versus science, which, like, all of this, all this microbiology of these things infecting people. But the ship's captain, Gerard, just keeps repeating the phrase sea fever. Like, people get sea fever. That's all it is. They just get sea fever. And it's like, no, it's not sea fever. It's an actual thing that it's killing people. And like, we have answers to what is killing people. Stop saying sea fever.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. People are just like, who needs quarantine? We don't need quarantine.
I know, Sarah, I figured you might bring this up at some point, but I was like, Ripley, we just, when we talked about Ripley on our episode, we were talking about how, like, she insists that they abide by the quarantine protocol to not let the alien creature onto the ship, but they refuse to listen to her. And it's the exact same thing with Siobhan here, to the point where, I mean, you'll talk about it, but like, she has to actively sabotage them because no one will listen to her. So,
yeah. Yeah, and that's what happens. Like after Johnny dies, and like they do figure out like a way to get the bigger creature to detach, which is like they send electric shocks, which I think it felt like very Jaws for some reason. I can't remember. I feel like it's one of the Jaws sequels that they use electricity. It might have even been like Jaws the Revenge, but they use electricity to like stun the animal. But like, yeah, they send electric shocks through the ship, and are on their way back shore. But Siobhan is very insistent, like, hey, we can't go ashore with one of us being infected because it could get out and it'll just take over, because nobody knows how to stop it. We don't know anything about it because we just discovered it. And like it's very smart on her part, because she's at least admitting like, okay, yeah, I discovered it and I understand it a little bit. I understand it enough to know it. Yeah, it's one of those things where she is the smartest character because she's smart enough to say that I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
Which is like always one of the smartest things a person can be, is
totally
able to say, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah, as opposed to being like bullheaded and just like pretending like you do know. So we're not caring.
Well, she also is the one that says like, we need to call for help. But at the very beginning, they're like, nah, we're good.
Yeah.
Totally.
No. And it's a lot of like just emotion overriding. Obviously, like she's not even a part of this crew. She just is on the boat. And so it's a lot of emotion overriding that. So, they have people, they want to get Johnny's body back to shore. They want to get Sudi back to shore. They want, Omid has people home, and then everybody else just wants to get off the boat as well. So it's a lot of like her being overridden by this. She's not the captain either. So like, yeah, she has no control over the situation. And eventually she just decides, fuck it, I can't help this. And throws like, one of the fishing lines, which is like a big giant rope. She just throws it off the back of the boat and lets it get tangled into the propeller and says, I'm going to scuttle this boat and I'm just going to keep us here. I'm going to force it. I'm going to force the issue, which I think that's pretty great. Like, it's just one of those just deterministic things of like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to cause the change that I want to happen.
Well, it's almost like they gave her no choice, because she was like, do you know how many people live in your town? 200,000. So like, you're willing to put 200,000 people at risk to save this one person. Like, and yeah, again, COVID vibes for sure. But since you mentioned like the emotions running really high too, like she gets punched in the face for doing that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. She gets absolutely socked by the older lady on the boat, who Chara. Who is like the ship's kind of captain, or not captain. She's the kind of the ship's she's the galley cook. And so, yeah, she just gets socked right in the face for this. And I think at this point, we're also pretty much afraid that like Gerard is going to do something violent to her as well.
Totally.
Because Gerard has been just nothing but like, rude the entire time. But now at this point, like, we expect him as the captain to start lashing out. Like, he's also getting more violent. We later learned that, he's also infected, which probably from sticking his damn hand in that big puddle of goop earlier.
Yeah, I don't think he washed up after that.
Yeah. We do get a great reveal though. And it's, just in time. It's, it's time for our, end of the second act reveal. And it's that we find out that Gerard was the one who took them out there, and he wasn't supposed to go out there. He took them into an exclusion zone. And obviously, hey, if you have an exclusion zone marked on a map, I guess that means the government knows whatever that thing is out there. So they know about it. But yeah, Gerard, for whatever reason, was, seeking unfished lands, which could have had a bigger yield for him and his boat, which It was greed who did them in all along, and
always
not,
is.
Always is.
yeah, and not superstition, which is like, it's at this point, like, there's still a lot of like, Siobhan and her red hair caused this, and she's like, no, you're mixing up, correlation and causation.
Yeah.
Don't do that. But no, all along it was greed that caused this whole situation. Like, there was no superstition, there was no ghosts or anything. It was just Gerard trying to make, a bigger bank and not wanting to share. Yep, that's all it was.
Just like
So
Alien.
now they're all doomed. Yep, just like Alien. I think a lot of the movies tonight are just like Alien.
I know. I think we're going to bring up Alien a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a lot in my notes. Yeah.
Yeah, Alien pops up a lot, except for, honestly, not Dagon.
Not Dagon.
Dagon is an alien. Not Dagon.
I can't wait to
Dagon is
talk
something else
about
entirely.
Dagon. I can't wait to
Yeah.
talk
I
about
know.
it.
I'm so excited too.
But yeah, it's upon this kind of reveal that, like, hey, everybody assumes they're doomed now, because now they don't even think the Coast Guard can come find them, and Freya has to watch Gerard die. His eyes explode because he's also infected. And at this point, Freya just kind of gives up and leaves the movie. Which she does it under like a kind of good terms, because she realizes like she's been bamboozled by Gerard and now he's dead anyway. And her whole, kind of fantasy about like living on this boat and being a fisherman's wife, and also like it all fell apart on her. And so she's going to take the rowboat out and she's going to see if she can find help that way, and leaves Siobhan and Omid to their own devices. Like, you do whatever you want here. This boat's yours.
Oh yeah,
now.
she's like, it's just a boat. Whereas like the whole movie, she's been like, oh, we got to protect it. It's like, it's our life.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I don't think they explicitly said this, but I was kind of thinking, is the masthead supposed to represent their daughter that they lost?
Yeah.
Because
So so they had lost their daughter, and even the name of the boat is another thing I looked up. The name of the boat is the Neum Kinor, and that's like an old like Irish tale as well. But it's about like this otherworldly woman who takes a husband and takes like an Irish husband and takes him to like this land of youth, kind of like other dimensional place, whatever. And he wants to go back home at one point, and she says, okay, you can go back home, but you can't touch Irish soil or else you'll never be able to return. So the whole myth behind the boat is like, or the whole myth behind the name is like, you can get on the boat, but you can't ever get off. And even the name is Chin Or is golden haired. So it's Niam, who was just the name of the woman, and then golden haired Niam.
Mm-hmm.
And so that ties into like their blonde daughter that they had.
yeah, okay, yeah.
So yeah.
Also,
yeah.
I'm sorry, figurehead, not masthead. I was going masthead, bulkhead, figurehead is figurehead.
Yeah, figurehead. But there's a moment when they use the electricity to get themselves off the big creature, that it also sparks the figurehead, which is meant to kind of be an effigy of their daughter. And so like, Freya freaks out like, oh no, it's gonna burn. But yeah, at this point she says, it's just a ship and I can't hold on to it anymore, and then just takes off. And so that leaves Siobhan and Omid, and they decide, well, we're gonna get the creature that we have locked away in kind of the return. They have like the water return, they have one of the creatures in there, and they say, well, okay, we'll get this out of here, and then we'll get off the boat, and that'll be it. And once they get rid of the creature, the boat starts to sink, and they say, well, okay, that's really it now. Let's set it on fire. And so they burn this ship, out at sea, and they just jump on this little inflatable raft to get away. But before that, calling back to something we learned at the very beginning of the film about how fishermen don't know how to swim, because it's bad luck.
So goofy. It's nuts.
Yeah. Omid falls into the ocean and is, taken down by the big giant squid type monster. Siobhan jumps in to save him and brings him back up, but in doing so, she herself becomes infected and jumps back in and I guess decides to swim all the way down to punch the creature or something. I don't
or get a good look before she, I don't know.
Yeah. Her last act is we see her just swimming at it. It's like, I don't know. Is she going to tell it off or punch it? Or I don't know. Try to shoo it away. Like, come on, get it. But yeah, our kind of last shot of the film is, Omid floating adrift in the sea with the bioluminescence underneath him and then another ship off in the distance, which, yeah, it's cool, but it's also ominous because what if that ship that's coming to save him also just gets stuck and infected? Right. So
I don't think the problem is solved.
Yeah, no, because we've already seen another ship earlier in the film that was, scuttled and just full of dead people. And then
they
that's
had
what
their
happens
eyes
to this
exploded
ship
too. And he was like, oh, it could have been the birds. I'm like, you opened a hatch to get down here. How do you think birds got to his eyes? Sea fever.
Well, the birds, sea fever. It's all sea fever and birds. And don't ever worry much about it. But yeah, that's Sea Fever from 2019. I really enjoyed this film. I think, again, just doing so much with what they had as far as a budget, and you get good performances all the way through. And the monster effects are good. The gore effects are okay. And they're not this isn't a gorehound film. If you're looking for that, but they're okay. They're good enough. And yeah, other than that, yeah, it's a well produced kind of production that I think just had a real shame of a fucking release time.
or
seriously,
fortuitous, but no, I guess people probably didn't want to see parasitic or infectious stuff around that time.
No.
Well, I think Underwater had a weird timing too when it came out, and then also so did Deep Rising, which I'll definitely get into. But yeah, there's all kinds of weird timings stuff.
Yeah.
Superstition.
Yeah, I think Underwater just got screwed over by the fact that it was supposed to be a theater film.
Yeah.
And nobody was doing theaters.
Yeah.
That's
Totally.
Its budget is way too big.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, any final thoughts on Sea Fever?
I liked it. I guess slight spoiler for my review at the end, but it wasn't my favorite of the four at all. Might even have been my least favorite. But I enjoyed it. I did think it was a little too slowly paced. Kind of not enough happens in the middle section of the movie. I kind of liked the superstition versus science angle. They didn't do a lot with that. And then they kind of almost ended on the side of, I don't want to say superstition, or maybe you want to call it faith, where with Siobhan jumping into the water and becoming one with the ocean, like the story that Freya had told in the beginning. And Siobhan's like, oh, she drowned herself. It's like, no, she became immortal and she lives in the sea and you can see her hair, So I don't know. It has a lot of really nice imagery. The parasitic thing is really, really gross and disturbing and effective. The characters are really hard to hard to spend that much time with, other than Siobhan, because she's the only intelligent person. So, Sarah, what did you think?
I thought it was beautiful, like we've covered, but it also didn't really keep my attention. And I think the thing about some of these kinds of movies with lots of characters trying to figure out what's going on, they're bound to make stupid stupid decisions. But this one, there was like one after another that just kind of pulled me out. It was almost like too many stupid decisions. Like, oh, there's an exclusion zone. Let's go. Oh, we need to quarantine. Fuck quarantine. Oh, there's another boat. Let's wave them over and tell them. Oh, let's not tell them what sea fever is.
Let's keep it a secret. Yeah. We saw a bunch of dead bodies. So,
yeah. So it kind of like took me out of it. But again, it was a really beautifully visual and interesting visual film. So yeah, it gets a bump up letter grade for that.
I have a quick question, because one thing I did really like about the movie was Siobhan as a character. I actually related to her a lot as someone who is also introverted and very analytical. But what was up with that scene where she like made a pass at Johnny? That seemed kind of out of character to me. Like she randomly was going to hook up with him. Like she'd been avoiding everyone the whole time.
Yeah. I for some reason have it in my mind that she was, like they knew each other. Like he was her in to get on the boat.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I just missed that element.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that also just might've been something I filled in on my own.
No, that's possible. I guess if I'm thinking back to the beginning of the movie, that is possible. Even then, it still seemed like a strange, but I don't know. Maybe they previously had a flirtation or something, but.
Yeah. I thought it was along the lines of like, he was her in to get on the boat in the first place, but they weren't really connected as much. But yeah, they were just flirtatious at that point. All right, then. Well, that's Sea Fever. Let's move on to Underwater from 2020.
I'm like weirdly nervous about this. This isn't our usual format, so I will do my best.
Sure, yeah, no problem.
So yeah, Underwater from 2020. It was directed by William Eubank, who hasn't done very much else. He did do Paranormal Activity: Next of Kin, which is a strange movie to follow this one. Although I don't hate it. I'm kind of partial to all the Paranormal Activity movies, but and not much else. He had only directed like one other thing and a music video or something before this. So I think this is pretty impressive given his limited roster. The writers are Brian Duffield and Adam Kozad, and Brian Duffield wrote a movie that I do really like called No One Will Save You. You should check it out. We're going to do it on the podcast at some point. Actually, now that I think about it, it's kind of funny that he wrote that because there's no dialogue in the movie. But you know,
I think he also directed that movie too.
Did he?
I think so. Because I was kind of going. Yeah, he also produced that movie.
Oh, okay. So that was like a passion project.
Yeah. So he was writer, director, producer on that film. Yeah, because I had to look into, like you're saying, I hadn't really heard of William Eubank either. He just seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. Yeah. And so I was looking into like, how did this come together? And it actually seems like Brian Duffield is more of the kind of pushing force behind this film.
That makes sense.
Because he was also like writer producer on the Babysitter films with Samara Weaving.
Oh.
And also produced Cocaine Bear, like, you know, years after this.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, he's been at it for a little bit, but like, yeah, he's been a writer producer for a minute. Yeah. So it seems like he's more of a driving force behind this film, but he only gets the credit for the story of this film. And then the other writer did the screenplay. So it might've been something where like he came up with this great pitch.
Yeah.
But like, hey, I don't have the time to do this or whatever.
Right.
You guys go do this. Have fun.
I totally forgot about that Babysitter movie. I feel like nobody talks about that movie anymore, but I thought I remembered liking it. Okay. And then I'm just going to run through the kind of cast here so that you can get a sense for the characters. And then I'll give the synopsis. But so we have Nora, played by Kristen Stewart. She's an engineer. We have Captain Lucian, played by Vincent Cassel from Black Swan, and he was also Serac from Westworld, if anyone is a Westworld fan like I am. So yeah, he's the captain. He's in charge of everything here. We have Paul, played by TJ Miller, who you probably all are very familiar with at this point because he was in the Deadpool movies, or if you like Silicon Valley, like I do, he played Ehrlich. And of course, he was also in something that I frequently talk about, Cloverfield, because that's one of my all-time favorite movies. Ironically, John Gallagher Jr., who plays Smith, was in the Cloverfield sort of sequel, 10 Cloverfield Lane. Not really sequel, but like in the same universe, which I also really like that movie. Emily is played by Jessica Henwick, who I guess she was in Cuckoo. I actually haven't seen Cuckoo yet, but I knew her.
That's a good film.
It's good. We're going to do it on the podcast pretty soon. I knew her as Bugs from Matrix Resurrections, as a huge Matrix fan. And then we have Rodrigo. I'm going to butcher this guy's name. I'm so sorry, but it's Mamoudou Athie. And the only thing I knew him from was Jurassic Park Dominion. So it's basically just in terms of the character setup, you really only need to know that we have the captain, we have Nora the engineer, we have Paul the comic relief, we have Emily the nervous one, we have Smith who's like into Emily and they're kind of mutually into each other but not officially dating, I think. And then we have Rodrigo, who doesn't get much to do because he dies very quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically all these people are working at a deep sea drilling company. So like far under the ocean, I believe they say it's 6 or 7 miles down. They immediately, like the movie starts with Kristen Stewart in the bathroom saving a spider from the sink, which I thought was interesting. And then we just immediately jump into the action. I almost wish that we could have had a little bit longer to breathe right at the start before stuff started exploding.
Yeah, you can't get comfortable.
I know. Because I liked the inner monologue she was having about you can't really tell if you're asleep or dreaming, or is there really a difference? And then the explosion or earthquake happens. And it was so jarring to me that I actually thought it might be a dream for like the first few minutes.
And they pull that off pretty well by doing like some slow motion, like so it feels like a slow time dream when like the water first starts dripping onto her hand from like the ceiling. I also like, because it was a very specific quote that stuck out in my mind, that she was recounting something to us, but she was saying like the first time I heard him, I remember it in a dream, and he told me I knew he was an optimist because he told me he didn't believe in time. And so that, like, I knew going into this film was supposed to be some sort of like Cthulhu type film. And so I thought that was a very Cthulhu kind of centric thing to say, you remember him in your dreams and he says he doesn't believe in time. I'm like, oh, that's hella Cthulhu. We're going to get really Lovecraftian with this.
I really like her response, like in that retelling, which was, there's a comfort to cynicism. There's a lot less to lose. So I guess there again, you kind of get that like science versus faith, superstition versus technology theme again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I spoiler to the end of the film, though, I felt like the film didn't get as Lovecraftian as it could have. It felt more monstery. And so I think I was off base with like, I still like the quote, and I think it applies to somebody else in this film that we never see. But yeah, I thought I was more excited than I should have been.
No, that's fair. And definitely we will get into that. I do have some more stuff to say about the Cthulhu thing for sure. So at this point, it's like the station is breaking down. So there's water spraying everywhere. Nora is kind of running around, and the corridors are, she has to seal off one of the corridors, even though people are running towards her, because otherwise like they would lose the whole station basically, and herself and, lots of other people. So she has to make that difficult instant decision to close it off, dooming the other people, but saving her and Rodrigo. Her and Rodrigo then crawl around through some corpses and find Paul, who is kind of trapped under some rubble with his stuffed bunny, who he's very careful with throughout this movie, which I learned from the trivia is because it was actually supposed to be a real bunny, and the stuffed bunny was just a stand-in for the real bunny. And so he actually was supposed to be like desperately protecting a live animal throughout the movie. But since they left it at just a stuffed bunny, it's actually much funnier. And kind of more touching in a way. It's very charming. So they now have Paul, and they managed to find the captain and Emily and Smith. So that's our whole crew is together at this point, because most of the people that they know are dead, and they have lost communication with the surface as well. And so the only way that they can possibly survive is to go outside of the station and then walk across the ocean floor in these like massive, like very video gamey suits, like deep sea diving suits, where they can get to the nearest station, which is the Roebuck, which is still not close. They're going to have to make a journey. And these suits may or may not survive that journey. Spoiler alert, they don't. And the nearby station, the Roebuck, might also have escape pods that they can use. So there's a lot of mights and uncertainties here. But of course, if they stay at the station, they will certainly die. So they really have no choice but to try.
Yeah, I like the production design overall in this film.
I do too.
The suits kind of do fall into that realm of like, well, they kind of all look like Gears of War characters now.
That's exactly what we said. Yeah, Gears of War for sure. Just like ridiculously I guess they weighed like 140 pounds or something. So
wow. I read that too. Yeah.
They're not. It's not quite as bulky as like the Deep Star 6 suit, but they're just these massive. Giant, giant suits. But they look great, but also you can't not think about Gears of War with like the way their heads poke out of like these giant armors.
Sarah, I know you're not a gamer, but you should Google this after, because like it seriously, the characters on Gears of War. Nirvan likes the series. I'm not as into it, but like they look ridiculously massive because of these suits. So, okay, everyone gets in the suits, and then they have to descend down an elevator shaft. And this is when things continue to go badly, because Rodrigo's helmet starts to crack from the pressure. And then he almost immediately implodes horrifically. And so there's some question in Nora's mind. Well, she outright says that she thinks that he knew he was taking the faulty one to give her the good one, and dooming himself and saving her. So that seems likely. I was rewatching the start of the movie, and it does seem like he kind of thinks about it for a minute before choosing the helmet. So it seems like he was looking for it. And I think it ties back to something that happened just a little bit earlier, like when they first come together, and Nora is the one that knows how to kind of like, she gets into like the server stack, I think it is, and like knows how to, kind of reprogram stuff. And he's just kind of like admitting like he doesn't know how to do anything. Yeah. And so I think that was kind of his reservation. I think he looked at everybody that was there and like decided to sacrifice himself over her because he thought he saw her as more useful or something. Yeah. It's like, I guess. I mean, maybe, because they obviously wouldn't have stood a chance without her. That's very clear. Right. So they continue on, and everyone is freaked out. Obviously, Emily was screaming, and she's like, I've never seen anyone die before. We get this fun moment from Paul, who recounts a joke that Rodrigo used to tell him all the time and say it was a new joke each time, but it was always the same joke. And it was, what did the fish say when it bumped into a brick wall? Damn. Hilarious. Damn. Super cool. So at this point, they hear some noises in, like, they know that there might be a survivor nearby that they would like to check on and see if there's actually someone that they can save. But it turns out to just be a damaged escape pod that has a corpse kind of tangled up in it, and the corpse is like infested. It's like kind of pulsating, and it's like infested with these tendril growth things. So like the person didn't die from being crushed. They died from like whatever got to them, basically. And they find one of the creatures. I'm jumping around a lot. They find one of the creatures, which I think in the trivia they called clingers. Like these little ones are called clingers. So they do the alien thing of bringing it onto the ship and then kind of poking around it. And then it moves just like an alien with the face hugger.
Yeah.
And then they realize that that's probably just a baby, not an adult creature.
Yeah. I do want to make a remark about like TJ Miller is definitely an acquired taste for a lot of people. And I don't think he gets a lot of work anymore because he's kind of canceled. Turned out to be just like,
yeah, it's a little problematic. Yeah.
He's just like an incredible pain in the ass. And, like nobody wants to be around. But I was like, I didn't know he was in this film, so I was kind of worried when he popped up. I was like, oh man, is he going to be really annoying? He's actually not. He's actually pretty subdued in this film.
I actually liked him a lot.
And he had probably my funniest, like the funniest moment for me in this film is when they're on their way down before they discover the body. Like they're on their way to go down and like go get the body.
I know you're talking. I liked this too.
Yeah. And they decide like, okay, somebody's got to go out there. And then TJ Miller's character turns to little nervous Emily, who doesn't know, like she doesn't even have a handle on her suit yet. She's not meant for going out and doing kind of the walks and the repairs or anything. And he just turns to her and goes, all right, Emily, you're up. And then just the way she goes, what? Like her absolute fear. And he goes, no, I was joking.
I have to say that really reminded me of my dynamic between me and my fiance. He would totally punk me like that. Yeah, no, I like TJ Miller in this movie. I actually was sad, we'll get to it, that he dies fairly early on because I thought that having comic effect is someone around for that purpose. Usually I kind of don't. I think that stands out a little too much, but in this movie, you kind of need it because this is a really intense kind of nonstop movie. And he really brings some levity to it, especially with, like I said, the stuffed bunny. There's a really cute moment with him where he has the bunny in his suit and he like he's like, do you need your little bunny heater? And he like breathes down into his suit to heat up. It's so sad. And he also bequeaths the bunny to someone else and says, like, if the bunny doesn't make it, I will haunt you. So he has a lot of really great lines in this. He also has a lot of lines of dialogue related to Alice in Wonderland, which was kind of strange. And he also has a giant tattoo on his chest of the Cheshire Cat. So he's a huge Alice in Wonderland fan.
Yeah, it's just a thing that like, hey, we're gonna build this into this character, and it's not gonna necessarily relate. Like he's just a character out on his own,
right?
That like you could put him into any movie and he would be doing this thing, and it's not gonna necessarily relate to what's going on in the rest of the film.
He does this exact.
That's pretty TJ Miller.
No, exactly. He does this exact same thing for Cloverfield too,
right?
And this movie is similar to Cloverfield in some ways, and so where it's just like everyone's running around and in danger, and he's kind of just bringing up the little quippy lines. Anyway, it's the exact same TJ Miller thing he always does, but it's effective.
Yeah, and he's pretty subdued in this film as well. So like, and like you said, he does die pretty early in the film, which I thought is more effective. That you like remove the comic relief. Yeah. And now it's just like, oh, okay, things are just really
everything's
serious.
Just dark
and
as
like,
shit now. Yeah.
Yeah. Because at that point we're down, I mean, we don't start the film with many people, but at that point we're only down to 5 people at that point.
Yeah.
And then, we have to keep certain characters alive so they can be alive at the end.
Right.
So somebody else so it's just in the order of elimination. He just had to go at that point. That's all it was.
I actually learned, again, if you read the trivia, you probably know this. I learned that they all die in the exact order that Nora finds them in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't read that, but that is the order that they go out on.
So at this point, they've got the little alien creature, and Emily is kind of guessing at some of its anatomy. And since I was talking about Alien before, I did want to mention there is a direct reference to Alien in this movie, which is that on the captain's shoulder strap that holds his injured arm, apparently the Wayland logo can be seen. So they at least hung a lantern on the Alien connection. So now they have to go down through this flooded area, which is where we lose Paul. He has a funny line before this, something about like this Slender Man shit down here, which I thought was really funny. And then he gets like yanked out of his suit from behind, and then there's just this blood splash in his helmet, and then he's gone. And then everyone else kind of regroups after that, until they encounter I don't know what you want to call these. These are weird. They're kind of humanoid. They also look a little bit like the Cloverfield monster, except that they have these like mouths that open up. I guess you could say like a snake, but it's more like if a jellyfish were to like wrap around your head. And literally they will just open up and then try to just swallow you. Like they just pull your whole body into their body, basically. So one of them attacks Emily. Nora manages to pull that off of her, and then they reach. Okay, so this is basically the whole scene where they're like fighting these things a little bit. The captain and Nora are kind of in a situation where they're separated from the other two. Emily and Smith are kind of it's a little bit of a question what's going on with them at this point. Nora is able to rescue the captain, even though she is being attacked by one of the creatures. And then the captain is kind of pulled, or how's he getting pulled to the surface?
He's getting pulled by one of the fishmen. Okay. And then the captain and Nora are tethered together. Yes. From like the previous excursion together.
He's like,
so like, yeah.
He's like, we're rising too fast. It's going to kill us, to come out of the depth this quickly. He was like, you need to let go. And she's saying, I can't because they're tethered. So he has to save Nora. He has to basically sever that and allow himself to be pulled up and killed, which is what happens, leaving Nora very alone at this point.
Yeah, it's a interesting with this scene, and then kind of one of the next scenes that comes up. It's a very like this is Nora's kind of induction into leadership. Yes, of like this is her turn to really just be in charge, because she's saying she can't sever the tie. It's subtextual, but it's also just very, very on the surface of like she can't sever the tie between her and her captain.
Good point.
Okay, well then he'll do it for her and set her off on her own.
Good point.
And then if the next scene is like her going into this shepherd's base, and we can talk more about like what goes on there and what happens after.
Yeah, so at that base, Nora has a full meltdown. Understandably so. She's now lost a bunch of people, and she can't find Emily and Smith, even though she's been trying to contact them. She does go to find the captain's locker, and she opens it. And this is where the direct indication of Cthulhu occurs, because there is H.P. Lovecraft's original Cthulhu drawing in the locker. It's not like overt. You pretty much have to pause the movie to see it. But that's really the only confirmation that you're going to get in this movie that the monster is Cthulhu.
Yeah. like we got a little bit of art earlier in the kind of suit up room from the original station. There's some mural that goes through the entire room, and there's like a lot of like squid faced kind of, you know, people fighting with the sea and everything. But yeah, this is kind of the first confirmation of Cthulhu. And then we also learn, I guess, I don't know if this is, were we supposed to be learning it in this scene? Because I felt like I was learning it, but we learned that the captain.
Oh,
well, yeah, we learned.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, we learned that too. But like, we learned the captain of the Kepler, who, you know, is the station they were all just on, was also the same captain of the Shepherd. And I felt like that's something that wasn't confirmed previously. It's just that that captain said there's nothing, the Shepherd isn't there anymore. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
And so it seems like something like, because all of his stuff is there, and because that picture of his daughter when she was 14, which is the thing that like he was, you know, remembering, like an episode he was like kind of flashing back to.
Yeah.
It seems like they abandoned the Shepherd very quickly for some reason. But then he also just went back down anyway. Like he went back down to the Kepler.
Yeah. That is a little confusing.
It seems like he was maybe keeping his status at the Shepherd a little bit secret from the crew, but from a personal standpoint was going to the Kepler as like a make good for himself.
That seems
like I'm not. Yeah,
that's a reasonable theory, I think.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fail this crew, because maybe he failed the previous crew, and like they were all attacked by fishmen,
right?
But now they've unleashed something worse with their big dumb drill. So.
Right. It's similar to the kind of lore of Cloverfield, actually. Yeah, I like that we're calling them fishmen. I'm on board with that because I did not have a good name for them. And it is worth noting, since we keep talking about Cthulhu, that these fishmen, which are not person-sized, but like slightly larger than a person, not like elder god sized, are actually kind of coming off of or out of this much larger entity, which you can assume is Cthulhu. And so it's like this massive, like, you know, picture Cthulhu. It kind of looks like that, except it doesn't have as much of a Cthulhu face as one of the other movies that we're going to talk about. But it is very creepy, and it's definitely a terrifying sight to everyone, because Nora now gets to rejoin with Emily and Smith. Emily is kind of, she goes back outside into the water because she still has to get to the Roebuck, and she finds Emily kind of huddled over Smith. And Emily has been kind of just talking to herself and talking to Smith about it, confessing her feelings, but knowing that he can't really hear her yet. But like, she just needs to just emote for a bit. And then they have to drag Smith with them because he's still incapacitated from earlier. And they still have to get to the Roebuck. So they're basically just pulling his body along, which I found really impressive. Okay, it's a lot to bring with you, but
yeah, there's that one I'm kind of confused on. Like, there's a lot of good, I think, kind of science stuff as far as like when people's suits cave in, there's that cavitation explosion. Because, you know, like they're under so much pressure, which we all learned about from that submarine.
Right.
We all learned about that.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, this movie was ahead of the game of that submarine of doing cavitation explosions.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I like is like the fishmen, even though they are like, they're stronger because they move quicker through the water. When Kristen Stewart gets like kind of swallowed up by one, and she shoots her way out, and then she just kind of easily climbs her way out.
Yeah.
Like
I was thinking about this too when we were talking about the Gears of War suits, because they're so like weirdly mobile in them. I mean, is there some sort of hydraulics that's benefiting? Like, I don't know.
So I think they do obviously get some sort of strength benefit because the suits are strong enough to survive at that depth.
Sure.
But also like the biology of something that would live that far below without a suit is going to have like a lot of jelly-like structure. So it made a lot of sense that she was able to just kind of tear her way out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of that in between of like, yeah, it's stronger because it is adapted for that life and can move faster. But also, if you get your hands on it, you can probably tear your way out.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So this is one of the few times when we actually get a little bit of backstory on Nora as she and Emily are dragging Smith. She talks about how she lost her fiance, which is basically that he went diving and didn't come back up, and they didn't find out what happened to him. So he is presumed dead. So she lost him tragically, and that has we've just seen glimpses of it really throughout the movie. She's like looking at his photo, and also she does seem very kind of closed off. I actually like her performance a lot in this movie because she's conveying a lot from just these extreme close-ups on her face and eyes, and I think it works really well. At this point, they get to the Roebuck station, and they have to go through. Yeah, this is what you were talking about, where Nora does get attacked by a fishman because they have to get it to the door, but the door is through this like gauntlet of sleeping fishmen who are kind of hanging upside down, that they have to walk through. But then Emily's oxygen is running low, and so the alarm goes off on her suit. It wakes up the fishman who attacks Nora, and yes, she kills it. They make it inside the Roebuck, and they are home safe, right? Like, end of movie. No.
Close?
That would be an interesting ending. They know that the Cthulhu monster is nearby, so they really just need to get to the escape pods and get out, because the Cthulhu monster is also kind of smashing the Roebuck in various places that they're like trying to run to, which felt a little bit like a video game boss to me.
Yeah.
That's fine. And they find the escape pods, but only 2 are operational. There's 3 people. Someone's going to have to die. Nora keeps it to herself that the 3rd one is not operational, so that she can force Smith into one as he like lightly protests, and he gets the stuffed bunny that he will take to Paul's family. And then Nora tries to tell Emily to get into one of the pods, but she is resistant because she figures out that the other one's not going to work, and she doesn't want Nora to die. So Nora has to punch her in the face and shove her backwards into the pod, and just says like, I would have given anything to have more time with my fiance. You have this chance to be with the guy that you love, so like go be with him. And then she sends them off. And then it's just Nora left in the movie, Nora and Cthulhu. She can see it very clearly through the window of the Roebuck. And at this point, she's going to die, obviously. She has no way to get out. And at the same time, she knows that the fishmen are kind of being attracted by the pods shooting up through the water. So she decides to blow up, basically like overload the energy core of the Roebuck so that it blows up, and then maybe it harms the monster, kills it, who knows, but it'll at least distract it and the fishmen away from the pods so that they can get through. And so she kind of has this cool face off with the monster where she's just kind of looking at it, and she can hear the timer running out, saying that the ship's about to explode. And then she says to the monster, like, you have 60 seconds. And it blows up. First time. Yep. You think this killed the monster?
Yeah. You
think it killed it?
It seemed to be enough that like the effect looked as though it was like kind of tearing it up by the pieces as the explosion went out. And because of all the other creatures being so vulnerable as well, I just assume like this is where
if we're going with it as Cthulhu, I admittedly do not know enough about the Cthulhu lore to know if this is something that it would be okay with.
See, that's where I think this isn't as much of a Cthulhu thing, because Cthulhu is much more about, like, as we see in Dagon, like all the old gods are much more about like driving you insane. And the original Cthulhu story is about like a ship wrecking on Cthulhu's kind of like island stronghold, fortress of solitude thing, and it's made of like impossible geometry, and it makes you insane to go inside. So we're not seeing a lot of that. We're seeing much more of like Pacific
like a kaiju.
Rim.
Yeah.
It's much more of just a kaiju. And we did get that quote before about what Nora was saying about like, oh, it's this thing that comes to me in my dreams, and it it doesn't believe in time. And I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah, Cthulhu, that's what Cthulhu would do. He would tell you time isn't real and would drive you insane with that. And it's like, but no, that's not what comes about, because we don't get any more like psychological elements after that, really. Right. Like, it's not a thing that's like driving them mad or like showing her visions or anything, because like none of the crew really turn on each other either. Like, that's not a thing that happens.
That's true.
Which is something that would happen with again, the Cthulhu mythos or the old god mythos, is eventually like everybody turns to madness and they turn inward and start killing each other. We see that in Dagon. You see it in other stuff. So yeah, this is much more just like, oh, it's a big DMC monster, and kind of like I feel like it runs kind of almost parallel to way things are now, of like they used to write about like the old giant squids and stuff like that. And so giant squids are real, but then in the old myth they've been built up to these grander things, these grander evil creatures. So it's kind of parallel to that. Like, yeah, there is a big giant kaiju monster that spits out little fishmen off his armpits. But he doesn't have the psychic powers or anything like that. He's just big. You can blow him up.
That is fair. Since you mentioned DMC monsters, I just have to point out that I have Rebellion from DMC hanging back here.
Oh yeah.
Although the blade is red for some reason, but yeah. So okay, that's fair. I guess I would have really enjoyed it actually if they had gone that route of even if they had cast some doubt on the events really happening as they are. I like that kind of, you're not sure if what you're seeing is real or not. I guess I wish they had done a little bit of that. But
yeah, or even if it was just a thing of like, obviously everybody is under some sort of stress underwater that long. Like, we see it with Paul,
sea fever,
the way he treats. They all have sea fever. Really, is Paul, treating the stuffed rabbit as he does. The way the captain starts, falling back into the way he was on the Shepherd mission, because he starts thinking about his daughter and thinking that she's 14. And Nora's like, hey, no, your daughter's not 14. She's my age right now.
Yeah.
But then we learn later, she was 14 when the first accident happened. So like, we see some mental stressors happening to these characters, but it never befalls Nora enough. If we saw Nora having like flashbacks to her episode with her fiance rather than just her telling us about it, maybe that psychological aspect would, the psychological aspect of the creature would be more, one side or the other, like hard to discern.
Even if they, like you said, the moment where the captain, they have that debate about his daughter's age, that was when I was kind of like, yeah, you could assume at that point that, oh, she died and he just didn't tell everyone. But I also, it does cast like a little tiny bit of doubt. And I like those moments in movies where it just gives you something to chew on later. You want to think about it, figure it out. That's how I I used to sit down with Mulholland Drive and try to puzzle that fucking movie out. I had notebooks full. And so that's just my kind of thing that I like to do. But yeah, no, this is a very straightforward movie. It's a bunch of people who are trying to get from point A to point B without dying, and they almost entirely don't succeed. It is still very effective, though. It's really, really well done. It's powerful. I almost had a panic attack watching this movie. It made me so anxious.
Same.
It's super claustrophobic at times, and the whole thing with them constantly on the verge of running out of oxygen is just terrifying. It actually reminded me at times of another video game called Soma, if anyone's played that. That one has much more of a psychological and existential element to it. But yeah, I think overall it really worked for me in a way that I wasn't expecting. I enjoyed it, and it goes by very quickly. It's not one of those movies that overstays its welcome. It's like an hour and a half long. It might even be the shortest of our 4 movies, which is pretty crazy for like a big budget movie like this. So I respect that they didn't drag it out. And you feel like there's stakes because you do care at least a little bit about these characters. So I really enjoyed it, actually.
I liked the quote, "We took too much from the ocean. Now she's taking back. We're not supposed to be here." I really liked that because I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and then I liked the little bit, I didn't mention the end credits, but we can see a little bit of the spin control that the drilling company is trying to put, that they basically covered everything up. And there's no mention of any sort of sea monster or anything, obviously. And the implication throughout the movie, I believe, is supposed to be that they, you can take it as they accidentally, through greedy drilling, woke up this being, or it's possible that they knew it was there and they intentionally woke it up. So I think you can go either way.
Yeah. I think the idea might be like they discovered it with the Shepherd mission, and then the Kepler mission was to wake it up. Yeah. And then now you get the impression, so they're covering everything up after this, and it says they're going right back to it.
Yeah.
So they still want to find out, there's got to be more stuff down there.
Totally.
And surely it can't be that dangerous because we blew up the big one now. So who cares?
So now they know how to deal with it.
Yeah. And it's like, just again, if you take the Weyland-Yutani kind of name drop, logo drop, whatever. If you take that seriously, it's exactly what Weyland-Yutani does. They're just like,
exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. How do we they're not going to make an underwater sequel, but the sequel would be, okay, how do we weaponize that thing now?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Good point.
The one thing we hadn't talked about, but I just want to bring up before we move on is, I love the sound design on this film.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah. It's so good. And so much of like the explosions that you hear happening outside are all like muffled and everything. Yep. And so it becomes this like, am I hearing an explosion, an earthquake, a monster? What am I hearing? And like, it's just a very full soundtrack, and like, dripping water all the time. Everything's wet and dripping, and it shouldn't be dripping. It's supposed to be dry. So yeah, that's great. And then there's just one scene where I think it's it's an alien thing, but you have all the characters kind of huddled together outside, and it's completely dark, and they can't see, like 5 feet in front of their face. And there's a fishman kind of, circling them and harassing them. The soundtrack does the kind of alien motion detector thing without there being a motion detector, present, but it has that increasing, blip sound that happens in the soundtrack. So it's like, they're doing the alien thing, but like they just don't have the tool out in front of them.
That's fair.
And they're not screaming, 5 meters, 4 meters.
Yeah, the sound design and the lighting, I thought, because it must be hard to, like, you have this whole movie taking place almost 7 miles underwater. There's no light source other than what they have, and I think they do a really good job with that and still make it. You can still follow it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of The Descent.
Yeah,
actually, a lot of it reminded me of The Descent.
I know. I thought about The Descent a few times too.
Well, there was one part, and actually, I have to admit, hour something into this conversation, I am deathly afraid of drowning. So this was a really fun challenge, I should say. But Kristen Stewart is afraid of water too. And so I guess she was thinking that it was going to be filmed like Aquaman, so filming on dry sets.
Right.
But they actually, had to film in like this water situation that terrified her. And so they were like, I saw her interviewed, and this interviewer was like, "Why did you do it then?" And she said, it reminded me of Juno. She says, "The only reason to do something is because it scares you," which makes me think of Juno from The Descent. And then she said, she had a lot of empathy for Nora because she had nothing to lose. So she loves those kinds of characters. But I thought that was really interesting. And then she commented on the really heavy suits. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. She also is afraid of drowning in water. And she was like, "I'm going to do it." I
mean, ironically, nobody drowns in this movie called Underwater.
No.
Yeah,
there's that.
That's true. It's very
implode.
True. Yeah, which is also terrifying.
You don't get the chance to drown.
No.
Yeah.
Had the claustrophobia though. Like, it's funny because the deeper I get into horror, the more claustrophobic I get. And it's really, I started having dreams about being stuck in like a small ship or because at the time we were also preparing for our Ripley episode, and which is why the timing was so interesting. There's so much crossover with Alien, but I started like dreaming about being stuck in a spaceship or stuck in an underwater vessel or in a suit or something. And I started getting like
themselves.
Yeah. And they're being so heavy. Oh my God. So yeah, that was a really, really interesting challenge. But I made it,
You survived underwater.
I survived, yeah, just like Kristen Stewart.
You did it. All right, Sarah. Well, you survived your dive deep underwater. So let's rise up for Deep Rising.
Yes. And I am so stoked that I got this one. And just like the first two, with my fear of drowning, the first two are serious movies. So the fear of drowning was a lot more pronounced. These next two, still there, obviously, very much still there. But there was such it was just so fun that I guess I didn't notice it as pronounced. But I loved Deep Rising. Deep Rising is directed by Stephen Sommers, who also did The Mummy and Van Helsing. So very much into horror adventure. And I guess this was kind of like the test drive for the format for The Mummy, because it came out like a year or two early. So he also wrote it. And Harrison Ford, funny, was meant to play Finnegan, who is actually played by Treat Williams. And he actually just learned Treat Williams passed away a couple years ago from a motorcycle accident in 1971. So that's really sad. But Harrison Ford actually turned down the role to star in 6 Days and 7 Nights. So you'll see a lot of similarities between Han Solo and Finnegan. Both are like wisecracking, lovable rogues for hire for like these dubious missions, and both captain ships that people call heaps of junk. And so it might have been, an homage to Han Solo. At one point, Finnegan even says he has a bad feeling about this. So I thought that was fun. Jim Carrey, I guess, was also supposed to play the part of Joey. And I will say, Joey was a fantastic comic relief in a movie that's already very silly. And I thought that I watched Underwater first, and I had kind of wished that, I know it was a much more serious film, but TJ Miller's character as the comic relief, I liked Joey a little bit better. And Joey plays a character in one of my other favorite rom-coms, Steel Magnolias. Actually, yeah, there's a lot of crossover there. But yeah, Jim Carrey was supposed to be,
Penny for your mummy.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop thinking about the mummy throughout this, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and Jim Carrey was supposed to be Joey, but he backed out when Harrison Ford backed out. So that was interesting. The design was by Rob Bottin, who did The Thing and RoboCop and the lizards from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So really cool. So, I mean, it's just such a silly campy movie. I absolutely adored it. The synopsis, I mean, I could go through it like scene by scene, but it's just so like, you know, this group is running in the water and then there's this shooting and this person dies and this person gets blown up and this person gets an axe to the head. And it's just like, there's so much action, but basically the inciting incident is kind of a two-parter where you see this little boat captained by John Finnegan and his crew, Joey and Layla, and then they are going across the South China Sea, which we learn at the very beginning. There's like this deep trench that everyone goes out to study and no one returns, which is funny because like no one's really studying it. So it was kind of like, oh, okay, that's an interesting tidbit. But I guess it just shows that it's a very deep part of the ocean that lots of, you know, scary creatures can live in. And then you meet this kind of like ragtag group of mercenaries, and then it shows this Argonautica, this very fancy, slightly, I would say, politically incorrect ship with this raging, like they were throwing an absolute rager because this was like the maiden voyage of this particular luxury cruise liner. And so the inciting incident is part A is that all of a sudden this rager gets broken up by this gigantic jolt and chaos ensues and you know, everyone dies, and you don't know that everyone dies at that point. You see a lot of people die, but it also had that particular sequence also had one of the like scary things you think of as a kid, where there's a woman that runs into the bathroom.
I knew it was gonna be
and she's sitting on the toilet, and like the creature like pulls her in, and then like the bathroom just gets like splattered in blood. And I was just like, oh, that was my favorite part of that whole hilarious sequence. So you see like this Argonautica ship completely under attack by this creature, and then the boat, one of the little lifeboats, detaches and then hits Finnegan's boat. And then that's the second part, because they're like, oh, what is this? So, you know, these mercenaries, so they this part was like gun porn, I called it, because it was just like this gun after this gun after this gun. And they get all their guns, and then they go on like pirates, go onto the ship to loot the ship. And I should say I skipped over a part, but like right before that, you also meet Trillian, who is some kind of a thief. Like a Bond, you know, she was a Bond girl. I think she was a villain in GoldenEye. I can't remember. She was in GoldenEye.
Jean Grey as well from
X-Men. Yeah. So she's some kind of a thief, and then she gets stuck in this like room, this vault room while this creature is attacking. So she survives, and so we've also met her, but this group of ragtags go onto this ship, and they're, you know, all there to loot it. And then they go into this like big atrium, and they see all this like carnage of these people who have been just, I mean, it's so campy. The design of the like skeletons and the squishing and everything. It's just, oh God, it was so fun. So then, you know, they reach, I'll see. I'm trying not to go because it's just, there's so much. There's just so much silliness.
Yeah, there's so much silliness. I think one of the best parts is like, okay, one, we have kind of these almost 3 different storylines, possibly 4, just all happening at once. So we have the big giant cruise ship, And we learned that, okay, kind of the smuggler, the pirate smugglers are taking, this group of like mercenaries onto the ship to loot it. Okay, great. But then Famke Janssen is just there on her own. Like, she isn't connected.
Yeah.
She isn't there connected anyway. She just saw opportunity of like, oh, there's going to be a cruise ship full of rich people. Hell yeah, let's steal from them.
Yeah.
And so like that's
Yeah,
everybody's mindset is like, let's steal from rich people, which is kind of great.
Steal from rich people.
And then it turns into a monster movie, and you go, well, all of these elements would have been fine on their own, but then it turns into a monster movie.
Well, then the fourth one is you find out that Canton, the guy in charge of this ship, is like purposefully trying to like, destroy it to collect on the insurance.
He's doing insurance fraud. Like, he's just doing his own thing.
So much. It's just so much silliness. So there's, the creature is first you just see the tentacles, and the tentacles are, grabbing the different crew members. And I mean, seriously, it's like
I was pretty impressed by this.
Yeah. Just they're constant. They're running away. I mean, like I said, I could go scene by scene, but it's just running from one part of the ship to the other to escape. And then, there's all kinds of weird deaths. One of them.
The one I was just gonna say, we should talk about the guy who gets like spit out like anaconda style.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
and then you see like half his face
half
like Gus Fring, and I was like, wow, that surprised me a lot, because I was like, this is a almost Mortal Kombat level of gore that I was not expecting from this movie. And they like really splash, like they do some really gross effects that are amazing. So
they do.
And like, this is all Rob Bottin. Like, because, like we mentioned, he did The Thing, and like, he's just known for doing like these really just disgusting, but also, amazing effects. So he designed a lot of this. And with it being 1998, like, we see a lot of bad CGI in this film. And
love it.
It was kind of this that turned him off from doing movies. He doesn't really work that much anymore, because he just was like, I don't want to incorporate CGI into my stuff. So if you're not going to hire me to do all practical, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. And so he's kind of retired. So good for him for having that kind of principle. I think we see a lot of people doing the same thing now of like, well, I don't want to incorporate AI into my stuff, so I'm not going to be a part of it anymore.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
The funny thing about the year of release and the CGI is that this came out 1 year before The Matrix, which is my favorite movie of all time. And I literally just rewatched it 2 days ago. And all I could think of, first of all, yes, I'm biased, but I was just thinking like, the effects in this movie, obviously they're groundbreaking special effects, but I was like, they hold up so fucking well. Everything looks so great. Most of it looks really, really good. And then you see this movie that came out the year before and you're like, I don't mind if a movie is this silly and they have shitty effects. It kind of adds to the charm. Like, we'll talk about Dagon for sure in that realm. But honestly, like, I don't know. I did like the creature design in general. I like that they were, he was like, they don't eat you, they drink you alive. They just like suck your fluids out and spit out your skeleton. I was like, that's gnarly, dude.
Yeah, it's gnarly.
Just I think the thing about the Matrix and compared to this is like, they both have similar budgets. Like Dagon, we see has a lot of, like shitty effects and everything. And that's fine because it's Stuart Gordon doing the most with what little he has. This had a budget of like 45 million. So when we get to the end and the big giant monster explodes and it's the worst thing we've ever seen, but it's followed up by the miniature of the ship exploding, which is fucking awesome. Like, there's all the practical stuff in this movie fucking rules. When the ship is first attacked and, the ship is kind of tossed about and everybody in the casino is thrown around and like you get a whole bunch of defenestration of people falling through glass windows and they fall onto tables and like, oh yeah, hell yeah, this rules. And it's like, this is Stephen Sommers mixing, like, not only he's not doing Alien, he's doing Aliens and mixing it with James Cameron's other film Titanic. is what I think he sat down and said I was going to do. Like he's like
there's definitely Titanic vibes. Yeah. He's like, the ship is impervious to weather. Right. It's like, okay, dude, shut up.
Well, it's funny because Titanic actually plays a pretty big part in its release. So it was Deep Rising was originally planned for a May 1997 release, but it was pushed back because Buena Vista had more hope for Con Air, which was their big action flick for the summer. And then it was released 8 months later. So Deep Rising was released 8 months later, and it had to go up against Titanic, which was another movie about a doomed ship. So Titanic plays pretty heavily into the reception of this film.
I'm sure.
So,
and I think Titanic's release was pushed as well. So so this probably got pushed into Deep Rising's release. And just kind of just totally screwed them over. But I'm sure Stephen Sommers would have known about like Titanic being in production and like all the crazy miniatures, Cameron built for that. Because I'm pretty sure they built like a lot of miniatures for this as well. Yeah. So I think he was just like, I'm gonna kind of screw with James Cameron, and I'm gonna do 2 of his films at once, and then also just do other things. There's another scene. Just real quick, when the pirates first board the ship and everything's empty and dead, and they go into the casino and there's nobody there, and then something like falls and scares the one guy, and they all start shooting off their fake made up guns.
Well, you're gonna need those bullets later, dude.
They all start shooting them off, and like the scene is like Ghostbusters and Predator at the same time. Because it's the scene in Ghostbusters where they shoot the lady's cart, but also it's Predator where they shoot up the entire jungle, because they just all have, but they all have some sort of minigun, like Jesse Ventura's character.
I do like that Famke steals a gun at one point, just a little handgun, and then later they take it from her, and I was like, whatever, douche. And then they were like, give her a real gun.
Give her a real gun, yeah.
I like that.
And then they're like, do you know how to use this? And she's like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And then they were like, careful, it's got a kick. And she's like, okay. And then later she's shooting the monster, and then she like gets blown back like into the water. I was a little relieved with how they treated her character in this. Like, I mean, overall as a character, I thought she wasn't like that damsel in distress type. Right. She kind of had some of our final girl vibes, where she was like a cunning partner, not just like being pulled along, not like constantly afraid. At one point when Finnegan is in danger, she shoots the monster. This is like before anyone was really doing that. She saves him. And then there's stuff like she changes into more practical clothing later. And then also when they're in the galley, she's in the background, like eating some bread. And I'm like, yeah, you guys should probably get some calories. And then like at the end, she also is just kind of a badass. So I liked her a lot in this movie. Yeah.
I will say that I picked up on it when I was reading and then doing the research. It was a little misogynistic. So, give the lady a real gun. But also
there's all sorts of quips that they throw at her through the movie that are very misogynistic. I'm not
just to her too. Yeah. Like Mamuli he's such a perv. He wants to sleep with a woman from every country. There's like a wall of naked women. He's like, oh, it's my future ex-wives. And then the way they kind of all oogle over her. Over Famke. And, then of course she is like the whole Bond girl situation. And then at the very end, which I know we'll get to, I guess we could get, well, I'll get there when we get there. But yeah, there's just, it's definitely misogynistic. There's got the macho gun porn too. So that was an interesting flavor to the film. But yeah,
I mean, I think she likes Finnegan because even though he kind of has like strong like Peter Quill, Kurt Russell vibes, he's not a pig to her. Right. And there's that really great line where she's like, can you get me to your boat? I'll give you. And he's like, whatever I want. And she's like, yeah, whatever you want. He says, can you get me a cold beer?
Yeah.
And she's like really charmed by that, obviously, because I'm sure her mind went to some really dark places.
Sure,
so
yeah.
he's super likable.
Yeah, he is.
Can I just mention my favorite scene in the movie?
Please do.
And then I promise I'll stop derailing. The moment when I'm going to keep calling him Benny, when Joey and Hanover are in the hallway together trying to escape from the monster, and they're like, oh, it can be slowed down if it gets something to eat, right? And he's like, well, what's it going to eat? And then we get a like verbatim Shane from Walking Dead moment where Hanover shoots Joey in the leg, leaving him behind for the monster. But Joey escapes, later finds Hanover being actively swallowed by the monster. So in an act of like kind empathy,
selflessness,
selflessness, even though Hanover tried to sacrifice him, he gives Hanover his gun so that Hanover can presumably kill himself. But instead, Hanover tries to shoot at Joey. And then when he tries to kill himself, there's no bullet. And so he just gets swallowed horribly by that. I was like, you see all the beats coming, but it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It was so satisfying and funny.
Yeah, it's so satisfying. Yeah. And we've already gotten the setup beforehand that like when you get eaten by these things, it's a terrible digestion. Like, like it's a long, terrible digestion. So yeah, it's super
use that bullet on yourself.
Yeah, super satisfying that Hanover goes out that way.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, then after all the, action sequences that we see that make this such a fun action horror adventure film. So we get to we get to the point where the mercenaries reach the vault. Canton, who is hiding inside, Canton's, the bad guy from the ship. They basically, I guess that's where all of they eventually, so they kill Mason and Mulligan, kills Vivo, Mason and Mulligan panic and accidentally kill the passengers. And then they flee and eventually encounter Finnegan, Joey, and Trillian. And they end up, Mason's grabbed by the creatures. I'm just reading my notes here. Yeah, go for it.
One of the mercenaries was Jaimin Hansu, who we just talked about for A Quiet Place.
Yeah. Well, he gets killed really quickly. He gets the axe to the head. He gets the axe to
the forehead. I'm always glad to see him and stuff.
Yeah.
So then, the creature, we're getting to know the creature and what this creature is, which is called the Octolus. Let's see. How was it? Yeah, the Octolus. And so then, the survivors are finding themselves getting herded. And then, Canton he's like, okay, all these people can see my insurance scam. So he leads everyone to the front of the boat where he makes an exit. And this group finds this feeding ground with all of these Disney-ish skeletal remains, which I love so much. And then there's like screaming in the background, and it's just so Disney. I loved it so much. And then we see this like great confrontation, like the final boss confrontation where this creature, the Octolus, breaks through the hull, floods the decks, separates the survivors, and basically, gets a hold of Finnegan, and Finnegan basically has one of my favorite lines. Where is it? He pulls him into his grip, and he's facing him in the eye. And Finnegan has his gun, and he goes, "What are you looking at?" And then shoots him, and then there's a. I guess he just beats the final Octolus creature. So yeah, it's this. That's a good one.
Final Octolus.
Final Octolus. So then Finnegan and Trillian take the. What is it? Like the
a jet ski or something?
Yeah, it's like a jet ski. Yeah. He gets this like running jump of this jet ski. They make it to this island, and that's when they're getting all like sexy with each other. And I'm trying to find that line too, but yeah, they're kind of like, oh, what do we do now? And she kisses him, and he's like, what do we do now? They're stuck on this island, and then they see Joey. Joey washes up. The comic relief washes up, and we find out he survived too. And then yeah, we're led to believe, oh, they're on this island. Who knows what's going to happen next? What are we going to do now? But then it pans back, and you see that there's this gigantic volcano and like these monsters in the forest or in the jungle, and it's just so silly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, and then we also get a really great death with Canton. He gets the typical bad guy blow up death. He's escaping, but his escape boat gets torpedoed, I think.
He tries to jump on Finnegan's boat. But
That's right.
Finnegan's already rigged it with the torpedoes that were supposed to sink the ship, and it circles him back into it. And so he does go down with his own ship. So
yeah, he does.
We get the great like game over solitaire screen. Yeah. I like that.
yeah. So that was my very loose synopsis, but I just really loved this film. I loved the Y2K aesthetic. Everyone who listens to the podcast knows that I'm like really into like the Y2K thing. I loved the CD-ROMs and the computer screams. They just like oh my god, they just screamed Y2K. They also like I said, the goofy CGI, the fake turbulence. There's like the scene at the beginning. I think it's the very opening scene where you see Finnegan in his chair and he's just like shaking around. I was like, oh my god, that is so silly. I loved it so much. If I watch this, I don't know, if I watch this in certain states of sobriety, I probably would think it was a parody because it was so cheesy, but in a good way. Totally. I wrote down high camp extra cheese. It's so fun. Like I said, the feeding ground of all of the bloody skeletal remains. It's just such fun props and scenery. And I actually read the effects company that did the effects for Star Wars and Jurassic Park did this one too. So, and I guess the studio tried to give it a PG-13 rating, which I always love when a film, like especially a horror film, is trying to be a like kid-friendly rating, and then it doesn't get there, and it's like then you watch it as its regular rating, and you're like, how that, like even Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Hoover was trying to get a PG rating for that, so I love when that happens too. That's kind of a fun thing I like. So yeah, I thought it was a really fun. I loved. There's a bunch of funny one-liners. So like when Finnegan's crew gets to the ship and they're like, what if they attack us? These, they don't know it's a creature. They think it's, people protecting the ship. Like, what if they attack us? And someone says, what, with margaritas and tanning oil? So that's fun. I got a bad feeling about this. And then there's this one funny part where I think it was Joey. He was like, can you just get asthma or are you born with it?
Wait, Joey actually there's another line with Joey that, or a little exchange between him and I think Finnegan that cracked me up. And I wrote it in my notes and I still have no idea why it's even in the movie. But Joey's like hunched over, like doing something. And he's like trying to like get something open. And Finnegan's like, what are you doing? And he's like, he has like a peanut. He's like, what are you eating? And he's like, a peanut. And there's like no reason for this scene. He's just sitting there. He's standing in like waist deep water. They're going through all this like stressful shit. And he's just like trying horribly to open this single peanut. And I was like, what the fuck was that? And then later I thought it was going to pay off when they were like, oh, the monster will slow down if it's fed. And I'm like, does he have a bag of peanuts or something? It's just there's just no reason for it at all. So.
Yeah. Well, Joey had a lot of other funny one-liners. Like there is when they're in, I think it's the elevator, and they were like, "What the hell is that?" And he says, "The girl from Ipanema."
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then he's like humming it.
Funny. Yeah. And then there was one point, I think it was Finnegan says, "This is turning out to be one hell of a day." Like I said, when he shoots it in the ice is what are you looking at? And then there is one part with Trillian where she's like, "This is your piece of junk boat," and he's like, "You got a better one." So I just thought there was such fun dialogue in this one, just in addition to all the other fun things about this film. And I'm so glad that this one was mine to defend because I enjoyed every single minute of it, and I cannot wait to watch it again. It's one of those movies. I know my husband would absolutely love it. I think he's seen it once, but it's just one of those movies. It's just a fun popcorn movie. Yeah. It's just an absolute blast start to finish.
Yeah, it's you can see all the building blocks of like, you know, how the Mummy comes about out of this film.
Yeah.
You know, with like Treat Williams as kind of the roguish character, and like you can easily rewatch this film and just like imagine like, you know, kind of what Brendan Fraser would add to it if he was in the role instead.
Yeah.
So like you can see him in this in this role. All of the pirates are like the B movie henchmen of the time.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You mentioned how like the effects are Mortal Kombat at one point in this. But one of the bad guys is Mortal Kombat in that the guy T-Ray, who is like spends most of the time with Joey and is like, you know, it's Treat Williams, Joey, Mamuli, and then T-Ray. T-Ray played Kano in the 1995 Mortal Kombat.
God. T-Ray was like the one actor I don't think I looked up. I was like, so that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, Jason Fleming was in it too, and plays one of the pirate guys, and he's in like a gazillion Jason Statham movies.
Yeah, yeah. So
he was in Snatch because I recognize him from Snatch.
Right. Yeah. So he's a constant henchman. Jaimin Hansu is a henchman in a lot of stuff. Like he was a henchman all the way up to Galaxy or Guardians of the Galaxy. He was a henchman in that film.
Yeah. That's right.
And then Hanover. This is where you get a crossover between Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, because Hanover was
West Studi.
He was Sagat in the Street Fighter film with Jean-Claude Van Damme. So it's just henchman upon henchman upon henchman in this film.
Love it. Love it.
Like I think the only henchman they're missing, I think his name is Al Lee, is he's the Asian henchman that's in Die Hard and in I think he's in Big Trouble in Little China, but might not be. But like he was the number one henchman that showed up in all the 80s and 90s movies. That's the only guy. That's the only guy they're missing in this one.
Do some reshoots. I will say that this, speaking of like these classic action movies, the end, I like this movie a lot too. The ending of it though, there's too many kind of action set pieces that are all kind of shoved in like right at the end, in my opinion. And it reminded me of another movie I really like, which is Face Off. And Face Off is so much fun. And then at the end, it's like, this movie is still going. There's like a boat. It's like they conclude it and then there's like a boat chase and it just like goes on. And I'm like, okay, if you trim 30 minutes of this nonsense from this movie, it would be like incredible. But so I kind of felt like that by the end of this movie, where I'm like, stop doing things. Just like it's like
the Terrifier movies.
Yeah, like you can end now. But yeah, it is fun.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's worth it still going on, because then they start doing the jet ski stunts inside of a hallway, inside of a flooded hallway. That's fucking crazy.
The jet ski part, I was kind of like, this is jumping the shark a little bit for me, like almost literally.
No, jumping the octopus.
I loved it. I loved every part of it.
Yeah. This is a movie I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I was probably going to do it on this Showdown, but you picked it first, so you got it.
Sorry.
No. And also his the actor I was talking about, his name's Al Leong, not Al Lee. Al Leong. He was in Die Hard. He was in Lethal Weapon. He was in Big Trouble in Little China.
Look him up.
He's
cool.
You'll recognize him. He was in The Scorpion King. So.
Yeah. Wait, he played Genghis Khan in Bill and Ted, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that too. Yep. You'll recognize him as soon as you see him. He's in everything and just a constant henchman.
And he's still around.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I for some reason remember him getting some sort of award from something of being for henching. It was some sort of film award, not from the Oscars, obviously, but
not the best henchman category.
But
I love it.
Yep. Yeah, Deep Rising, fantastic film. Just got a whole lot going for it. It just, damn, those creature effects are, they're looking a little rough, but I don't know. I always remember this film because of like, there's so many crazy things happening, and it's like the fact that it starts as a film that could have been a film on its own, and then adds monsters to it is so silly. And then the way it ends, that perfect punchline of like, now they're on like a Kong Island or something. You know, we never see what's in the trees, but it's like big enough to explode trees as it walks. And you're just like, fuck it.
I mean, like, as a huge Lost fan, I was like, the Lost Island. I was like, it's the smoke monster. But then they showed the volcano, and I was like, oh, okay, wow, this went a different direction. But no, that is a funny punchline. I agree.
Just a great punchline ending. So
now what?
All right. Well, that's Deep Rising. So that's 3 down, 1 to go. And we're going to travel just a few years forward to 2001 with Stuart Gordon's Dagon. And had you guys seen this one before?
This was new to me.
I'd not seen it. I'd not heard of it. Was not aware of it. And I actually saved it for last because I was like, this, just based on the poster, I was like, this looks like crap.
Right.
But we'll get into it.
So I think I've only seen this once before, and I actually only saw it on the Sci-Fi Channel. So obviously the version I saw was very edited.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask, is this a Sci-Fi original? Because it felt so much like a Sci-Fi original, down to the effects and the acting.
Yeah. So I don't think it was like, I don't think it was originally funded as like a Sci-Fi original. I believe it was like just kind of Stuart Gordon doing his own thing. It was a film produced in Spain. And so it was probably a thing where like, oh, he could get his funding there. You know, Stuart Gordon, for, you know, anybody who doesn't know, he's just been a long kind of renegade filmmaker in a lot of ways, because he just does not make nice stuff if he doesn't have to. He directed Reanimator. That's the one we all know and love. Brian's a huge fan of From Beyond because of Barbara Crampton. You know, he just loved Barbara Crampton that much. He also directed Castle Freak, and Castle Freak is a wild film, and that's also, I'm pretty sure that's a Full Moon release as well. So you kind of know the quality there. And then Dagon. So like, he has a long list of genre films that are, they do their own thing. He does what he wants with them, and I don't think any producer could tell him to do otherwise. It's just Stuart Gordon's go to Stuart Gordon. But obviously because of that, he's restricted by budget more than anything, and that's what we see in Dagon. Is we see some huge budget restrictions, but it has charm to it. And
100%.
Yeah, it has a lot of charm to it. And I think what's interesting about this film is, and Kelly, you'll probably recognize this. This film is Resident Evil 4.
Oh my God. Okay. I literally wrote that in my notes. I was totally going to bring that up too. Yeah. It's strong Resident Evil vibes throughout. Although this guy's I mean, he's not really like any of the protagonists. He's no Leon. He's no Ethan, but
no, our protagonist is definitely not that. But what I found interesting about it was like, I was trying to find some sort of like connection. Like, was this ever confirmed that Resident Evil 4 was like based off of this film? Or because just it's set in Spain, just like Resident Evil 4. Yeah. And then you have all of these fishmen, you know, who would be similar to the villagers of Resident Evil 4. A lot of the parts of this film are spent running from mobs, just like the game. Yes. And even in one of the early scenes, we see a fisherman who has kind of like, he has a hood up and then like a mask over his, mouth, and he's hiding his fish features, obviously. But it looks exactly like the guy who sells you guns in Resident Evil 4.
I know. What are you buying?
Yeah.
I actually wrote down that it also reminded me of Resident Evil Village a little bit.
Yeah, which is also doing a lot of like the small village running from mob type stuff.
Yep.
So yeah. But I couldn't find a firm confirmation. But like, this film came out in 2001, 2002. That game came out in 2005. So it's very possible, that they based it off this, especially considering like the history of Resident Evil games. Obviously aping off other films and other movies. So yeah.
I can totally see that.
Mm-hmm. It's
hilarious.
I think it's just the Spain thing that really sticks with me as well. Like, okay, you have to be stealing it.
A little too close.
Yeah. But as Kelly mentioned, our protagonist in this film, Paul, is nothing like a Leon S. Kennedy. He is
Paul.
Yeah, he is a Dorcas Malorcas, is what we call around here.
I love it.
He is a pasty nerd, and I say this as a also pasty nerd. But no, he is. I grew to really adore him throughout this movie because he just made me laugh. With every fucking line that he said. Not intentionally so, but he's hilarious.
Yeah, he's a dork, but he's not like completely unbelievable or anything like that. You do feel okay.
Very likable.
Yeah, he's likable. You feel fine following him around as we have to. But the film starts out with Paul, and he's on just kind of a little pleasure cruise. He's with his girlfriend Barbara, and then Vicky and Howard, who are, Howard owns the boat and Vicky's along for the ride. I'm not quite sure what their relationship was. Like, what was...
That's what I was wondering. Yeah. Because at first I was like, I like the first lines of dialogue about them being on the boat went out of my head. So I was like, is this like his mother and father-in-law or something? But then she's like sunning herself topless, and he kind of sees her, and then it's not weird enough that I was like, okay, they're not okay. I don't know then. But then, and then later I was thinking, okay, no, they are her parents, but then they had a different accent from her. And then like she calls them by their first names. And then I was like, okay, never mind. I don't know then. I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't know either. Because the whole setup is that like Paul is rich because he's getting in on the .com before the .com bust, I guess. And Barbara's with him because he's rich. But like, we don't know why Vicky's there. Vicky's there with Howard, but we don't know what the relationship is between Howard and, so we don't know that. What we do know is the boat wrecks and they get hung up on the reef, and then they get attacked by fish monsters. And so Paul and Barbara go ashore to find help. When they get on shore, they can only find just weird townsfolk, a weird priest. Everybody's off-putting, and I like there's an element of like how everybody is only speaking Spanish. That is, they don't communicate with people well, and so you initially can kind of forgive the awkwardness between the parties, and you're not suspecting of anything. Like, it's like, oh, okay, there's just a communication breakdown. That's
like a language barrier.
Yeah, that's all it is. Like, there's nothing like that. But then just everybody else because a lot of people are just staring and being, super off-putting that way.
I love that moment where Paul has like a pseudo staring contest with the guy at the hotel where he, I guess, figures out that he's not blinking or something. And there's like these close-ups of both their eyes. And then Paul's like winking. And like, it's so weird.
Yeah, he's just trying to find any kind of sign of life in that guy's face.
You should say, sorry, the reason they crashed though is because of that like massive, crazy storm cloud.
Oh, yeah.
Like... that looks like the storm that looks like it was drawn in MS Paint. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just so hilarious. Oh my God. It
comes on so fast.
Yeah.
It comes on so fast. And the boat, like as it's going towards the rocks, it looks like a PNG, like being dragged across. Like, it's so bad. Oh my God.
You get the shot underneath too. And it's all very like, very archaic.
Yeah.
artwork.
Yeah, the boat, when you see it from ashore and it's just being tossed in the waves, is
Oh my
is
God.
absolutely a PNG being rotated. And
Yeah.
like, would they even have After Effects at that? I don't even think After Effects was out at that point. So like,
I'm gonna look it up.
it might have been, because I had After Effects in 2003, but yeah, like it's definitely just a PNG being rotated back and forth. I think.
Oh, After Effects came out in 93.
Okay, yeah. So yeah.
So
Yeah. So it was around. I wasn't aware of it until I went to college. So
yeah.
yeah.
No, right.
But yeah, I think the storm rolling in, I can't picture it exactly, but I think the storm rolling in is a composite of one of those like ink in a water vat type effects.
Yeah.
So like they squeeze a bunch of ink
Totally.
in and it looks like clouds rolling in, but then they just composite it over that Spanish town, the seaside town. And so yeah, it looks passable, but then you see the ship in the water and you go, ugh, ew.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So yeah, they go ashore, and I do like this part about the film though, is like, because the storm rolls in and everything is wet, like it's just constant rain coming out of the gutters, and like yeah, so we're getting the same kind of wetness effects that we saw in Underwater, where it's a a little leaky underwater town. It's what we feel. It's like we feel like we're under the sea anyway. So
yeah.
Feels very Davy Jones. I was telling Kelly, it felt like Adam's Family meets Davy Jones.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what you get. It's like, it is Adam's Family if they're violent.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're on the wrong,
with a little bit of Texas Chainsaw with the skin suits and stuff.
Yeah, it's all.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why they got into that, but I guess it's to cover up their fish form. But it's not convincing.
It doesn't.
It's not convincing.
Plus, yeah, they still have like the webbed hands, and some of them are like actual like crawling fish monsters.
Right. Yeah,
so funny.
Yeah, I and that's the other thing I do like, is like a lot of it could be passed off as something like, some people just have webbed hands. So, okay.
That's true.
Yeah, that priest just may have had a webbed hand. And then we later on see, like, when the mob is chasing Paul through the town, there's the guy kind of on the rollerboard. And, we've unfortunately kind of seen that with, like veterans, who are homeless. We've unfortunately seen that. But no, it's because he has squid legs. He's not a veteran of anything. He has squid legs. But like it's that, I think that's what plays really well into the kind of the Lovecraftian themes, is that it's that unsuredness of what you're seeing. Like, are you seeing fish monsters, or are you just seeing unfortunate people, like, who have had something terrible happen to them? Like, this is obviously kind of a depressed town that is, that operates on one sole business of fishing. And so, like, maybe we're just seeing people at their lowest. No, they're damn monsters is what you learn.
No, they're like, I mean, I really like the, I know that we already have a sense that something's up with her, but the main antagonist woman, I can't remember her name, but you know what I'm talking about. No, that's the girlfriend.
The antagonist.
Yeah, the part where they're like making out in bed, and then we get that reveal of, it's basically like the gills that they have on the Deep in The Boys, except it's like the most horrendous, like weird prosthetic that they just like super glued onto her belly. And then of course the reveal of her ridiculous tentacle legs. I thought she was going to turn out to be a mermaid because of because of the like dream sequence at the beginning, which actually I thought was a really effective, not quite jump scare, but I was kind of like, oh, what the fuck, when her face is just there as he's kind of like looking around underwater. That actually was really cool. But wow, and that also plays, again, that we talked about it with the Underwater, but like the whole dream sequence of, like, we start the film with Paul having this dream about this eye and this mermaid. Like, that's what Cthulhu type creatures will do to you. They'll start implanting things in your head. And so in that scene, I believe she does appear more as a mermaid, Okay.
Yeah, that's the vibe I got too. Yeah.
Maybe because it would be too obviously sinister if she was just like a pretty woman who had 2 tentacles for like I don't know, a mermaid is more appealing, I think,
it is
in general. But so okay, thanks for confirming.
It's far more enticing of like, the recognizable, oh, she's a fish lady, yeah, I kind of like that, I know that, instead of with the legs flopping around and slapping the bedposts and everything is like, that's not great.
And then when she runs on them later, or kind of quote unquote runs, like we'll get to that.
She runs and crawls.
But I mean, to your point about like you're kind of looking at the townspeople and you're like, okay, well, that could just be a person in an unfortunate situation. And then, of course, we start seeing all the crazy shit. But I kind of liked how the effect wasn't the same across every person. It was like everyone got it a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. Some people had straight up like almost fish faces, and others just kind of had very waxy skin, and that maybe they're not changed enough yet. And then some of them are on the ground, and then some of them are anyway. Like there's a lot of different effects at play here. Yeah,
I think that's generally part of the lore of anytime there's like fish demons involved and demons from the deep, is that like it just turns you fishy. Like it doesn't try to make you conform to like one species or anything. It's just like, you're gonna live in the ocean.
It's vaguely fishing.
Yeah, you're gonna live in the ocean some way somehow. Don't worry about it. Like you'll figure it out. Like maybe you get some teeth, maybe you don't. Maybe you get tentacles. Who cares? You're gonna live with me forever now within my golden eye palace.
Golden eye. I will say one of my parts that made me giggle was when he's at the hotel and he's asking for the room and he's like, "Roomo, please-o." He's like, "Upstairs-o."
Dude, did you take even like 6 months of Spanish? Dang.
Yeah.
Well, even like everyone knows por favor. Right. I mean, oh my God. It was so silly.
Oh, and then he tries to say muchas gracias, but he says like muchas dias.
Yeah.
It's like, how'd you really? All right.
Silly.
I mean, usually that's read as like super racist because it's done to like, Mexican or South American characters. So it reads super racist. It doesn't feel like that in this film because they're Spanish.
White Europeans. Yeah.
So and like some of them are really doing the hard Castilian Spanish.
I noticed
with
that.
With the list because it was filmed like that.
And she is too.
Yeah, which is what made me look it up. I was like, oh, this was actually filmed in Spain because like they're really hitting the lisp of the Castilian Spanish. I was like, oh, okay. Like this was filmed in Spain. It is basically a Spanish film. So I love one of the hardest filmmaking things Stuart Gordon does in this is after kind of the reveal of all the fish monsters. And the town is angered and they're chasing after Paul. He runs into kind of a drunken homeless man. And
Ezekiel.
Yeah, Ezekiel. And we get this kind of broken up, like it breaks up the action, but not completely, but it breaks up the action because Ezekiel decides to tell us how the town turned to shit.
Yeah.
But the transition from Ezekiel's old face to his young face
the little boy is so wild, but then he follows it up with like this long camera pull out to the town, and I was like, oh, that's such a cool camera move, but such a terrible transition. That rules so hard. That's funny. I was thinking like it's hard to plop in like 10 minutes of straight exposition in the middle of the action and not bore people to death. But the funny thing is like the exposition is pretty hilarious too. The
exposition's great. And like there's a very like kind of specific scene in there that's very funny. But what we learn is that, kind of fishing dried up in the town and they were a very religious town. But then some dude found some gold, and it's gold from, one of the old gods of the deep. And he said, hey, let's start worshiping this instead. and then they start being prosperous after that. And then you get this whole kind of takeover of like, oh, this fish cult over the town. But one of the funniest scenes is when they go full revolt and they break into the church, and
Yeah, I was going to say that
it
too.
just turns into get the fuck out of here, Jesus. And they start throwing, all the statues on the ground. They start smashing all the crucifixes. It's just like, it's such a weird like scene of revolt because they have so many statues in there to break. Like it wasn't just take the cross down. It's let's break everything in here. Fuck you, Jesus.
Fuck you. Like, wouldn't it be simpler for you to just discard all that stuff also and not smash into a million pieces that you then have to clean up?
Yeah. Like just simply just move it out and put it out back or put it in the storage. No, it's fuck you, Jesus. Get out of here. This is Dagon's temple now.
Fucking Dagon.
But
that's funny.
And then that's when they get their first murder. They kill the priest, and then they also start killing others in the town as sacrifice because Dagon needs sacrifices. So it's pretty good. It's weird to plop down a flashback that long into the middle of your essentially it was just a chase scene not 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly. And then after all the exposition, Paul isn't like, oh, got it. He's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so you're drunk and crazy, and or both.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, if our hero isn't even going to bother with any of that information, like why? Anyway.
Yeah. No, it's just, it's very funny. He's just like, oh, okay, I crawled under this wet porch with a drunk bum, and he just told me this crazy story. Maybe I'll go with it.
But I like when the guy Ezekiel is like about to make some noise or something, and Paul goes up behind him and then claps his hand over his mouth, and then he's just kind of like casually like dragging him along the alley, and he's like, why are you people doing this? And then I also like the scene right before the Ezekiel thing, I think, where Paul has escaped from the hotel, which, by the way, I actually like the moment in the hotel when he finds that there's no lock on the door. So he quickly like steals the lock from the bathroom door and then has to anyway, that was pretty clever. Yeah. But I love when he jumps out of the hotel, crashes through glass, and then like lands on cement. And I was like, what? There's no way he's just fine. And right when I said that, he like had gotten up and then he flops back onto the ground and he's like, oh man. And so I was like, okay, I guess he is.
Yeah.
Pretty funny.
Also, just another really Resident Evil thing in that hotel escape scene is he grabs a bookcase to put it in front of the door, which is something you had to do in Resident Evil 4 to keep the villagers out.
To be fair, that's in a lot of games now, but yeah, totally Resident Evil.
I mean, it's also probably in a lot of movies too. Like I'm sure it's happened in plenty of zombie films, but it just again, it just marries so well to that game and reminding me.
Yeah.
But
man, I wish I was a gamer.
I know, sorry. It's like it's an additional lens that I watch movies through now. I actually was just saying this to Nirvan the other day. I was like, this I said something one of these 4 movies, maybe all 4 of them, I was like, this feels very video gamey. I was like, so many movies feel video gamey now, and he was like, no, that's because video games feel like movies now. I was like, oh, right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, video games, base a lot of beats off of the way films go, but you see, it's easy to see the logic of like, okay, this is the boss fight, this is this, you're right. It's easy to see all that. Let's see, where are we at in this film? So after we come back from the flashback, Paul is back on the run with Ezekiel, and they go to the mansion where they're trying to find a car is what they're trying to do. And so the only person in town, is the rich kind of head of the, head of the town. I don't know I don't even know if they call him the mayor or whatever, but they're like, all right, we're going to go jack this guy's car.
It's almost like they teleport there too,
Yeah.
because they're talking about the car thing, and then instantly they're just outside the mansion and the car's right there. And I was like, whoa, were you guys walking and talking? What the hell?
They're not going to waste a lot of time getting there. It's like, sure, we could have an
It's close.
we could have an extended sequence of them sneaking through the town, but fuck it, why? Just get there and do it.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
They're there.
Go there, do it. But yeah, they can't steal the car, so Paul runs into the mansion, and this is where he meets, I believe her name is oh man, it's Uchiha.
I didn't know how to pronounce it.
I think it's Uchiha. Yeah, Uchiha.
Yeah.
The bedridden girl from his dreams, and she has this enticing nature to her. She brings him in, and despite him being dirty and on the run from fish monsters, he goes, yeah, I could kiss this girl right now. That's cool.
I was thinking that too. I'm like, oh, okay, like a little intermission here. You're in danger, but
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, didn't you just lose your girlfriend too?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which I think is all meant to play into kind of the Lovecraft themes of like the way, you can be hypnotized by, these old gods and everything.
Well, she's kind of siren like too, right? I kind of got that vibe. She's constantly, her eyes are always this big, and he's always staring directly into them, and she's always kind of smiling in like a creepy Mona Lisa way, where it's like, is she gonna kill me? Are we gonna bang? I don't know. And he seems really into that, even though it's his sister.
Either way.
Later.
Yeah,
So.
well, yeah, we find out later.
Fun.
Right. Well, hey, there's no rules underwater, I guess. But
There you go.
There's also like in the soundtrack, I believe there's kind of like a siren sound. Like you hear that you do kind of hear kind of the singing in the background a lot of the time. So
That's
yeah. But he has to stop because her dad is on the way in, can't get caught by dad, and just fucking gross fish noises coming out of him. We don't see him though, because that's saved for a big reveal. But Paul escapes out, gets into the car, drives the car, wrecks the car, gets chased some more.
Wait, first he fights the chauffeur though, which I thought that was one of my favorite scenes because the fight is so stupid. And then he's like hitting him with random stuff, and then he hits him with his phone, and he's like, I need a bigger cell phone. And it's just like, okay, what is this movie?
Yeah. It's so funny because 2001 we're talking about, it's pre-smartphone, so he just has like probably a little flip phone, and he's begging for a bigger phone, and it's like, hey man, you would get it in a couple of years.
I know. I'm like, careful what you wish for a little bit, because they're getting pretty massive now. But.
Yeah, you'll get it eventually. But yeah, he escapes, and then finds himself locked in another wet, just kind of space. And this is where we finally get full confirmation that everybody is damn fishmen, not just Uchiha, but we get this just confrontation with a guy who is bald with monster teeth and tentacle arms. And Paul beats him to death with a piece of a toilet.
Yeah. And there was like salamanders in the toilet. For some reason,
Who knows if they're just keeping a koi pond or if they're pooping those out? Nobody knows.
all I can think of when they show scenes like this in any of these 4 movies, where, like you said, everything is wet and there's like 3 feet of water on the floor, and it's just like, I just think, God, that must have been miserable to film for everyone involved, cast, crew. That looks horrific.
Yeah.
So
it's not heated, and you got to do multiple takes, and
no.
and you don't want to do multiple takes of that.
No, and it's probably filthy, and you're in it all day. Like, I just can't imagine.
Yeah.
So
from there, Paul's recaptured in a fishing net, quite appropriately. And he gets to rejoin everybody else. He finds himself with Barbara and Ezekiel, and even Vicky is back, who we assumed had died.
She's there physically.
Yeah, she's there physically.
Mentally, she's not all there.
We learned that Vicky has been impregnated by the god Dagon, so great.
Good.
Yeah, good for her. So proud. They try to fight their way out again. It doesn't, like, this scene doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, Paul's not a fighter. They try to fight an entire crowd, and
then Barbara's like kicking people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
Yeah, they don't have weapons. Barbara throws like one karate kick, and they're easily, overcome by all the townspeople and the fish priest. Vicky takes her life because boy does she not want to give birth to whatever is inside of her, which respectable. Yeah. Love that for you. your body, your choice. Don't have that fish baby.
Yep.
She takes it with a big knife too. She's like, and then you see
and she's like jamming it around.
Yeah.
She basically
she's motivated.
Yeah, she basically commits Japanese seppuku. Like she just she goes out.
Yep.
And now this is where the film like finally kind of picks up. Like the film is kind of on and off. The film finally hammers down and just decides, like, all right, we're going full bore. And we have everybody captured, and they're in this tanning room where there's a bunch of skins hung up, and they just force us to watch Ezekiel get skinned for minutes.
This was gnarly.
Minutes upon minutes.
Really gnarly, actually. In my notes, I just wrote, Jesus Christ, the skinning.
Yeah. Like, it goes on for so long, and it's all done practical, and they're just tearing Ezekiel's face off for what feels like forever. And then,
oh my God, I hate that it made me wonder, like, how hard is it to tear off a human face?
Yeah, right.
Because he's like working at it. So,
like, it's probably even worse because, like, the priest that's tearing his face off does not look like a strong person. He doesn't look like he regularly works with leather. Like, there's some other bigger guys that are holding Ezekiel, but no, it's just left to this little priest who doesn't even have the leverage to do it, and he's just just tearing it forever. And then when he finally rips his face off, like, it's a great effect of Ezekiel's skinned head just like screaming, but then it is a long scene.
And they're doing like a praying thing over the court, like Paul is like praying with him or something, right?
Yeah, because
throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, because Ezekiel is praying in Spanish, but like Paul recognizes the prayer from the cadence and can pray along with him. But there's no God here. It's only fishmen's. Paul escapes one more time and makes his way back to the church, and this is where he discovers the cult has built this underground network, and they are doing a full-on worship sacrifice ceremony. They're cutting up Barbara, who is fully nude now, because that's what I have to wonder, like, Stuart Gordon named his character Barbara, and did he name her after Barbara Crampton? Because usually it's usually Barbara Crampton being subjected to the awfulness in his films, like Reanimator.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, like in Reanimator, she gets eaten out by a decapitated head. So like
that's right.
So in this film, we have this woman who is stripped nude, has a bunch of like old god,
and they like cut her up and stuff too.
Yeah,
like,
she has a bunch of old god glyphs cut into her skin, and then she's sacrificed to the Dagon god. So I have to assume he did like a little homage to his like favorite actress who wasn't available, I guess, or just maybe didn't want to
do this.
Didn't want to be hung naked over a well for a chick.
That scene feels really long too. Yeah. Like, oh my God, they're dropping her in for so long.
Yeah, they're dropping it in for so long. We have this huge crowd in there, and they're all wearing like different like skin masks. Like it's a whole bunch of leather faces, like doing worship, and they're doing chants, and they're like picking up Uchiha on her throne and walking her around. Yeah, it's a long process, but Paul breaks in and does the coolest thing you can do, which is set a whole bunch of people on fire, and that fucking rules.
Are they easy to set on fire, I wonder? Because they seem pretty gooey.
Yeah, it's hard to tell if like maybe they're he does like throw a bunch of like kerosene on them.
That's
So
true.
I think that
Plus they are wearing the skin. That's kind of,
yeah, the dried skin goes up easy. So
once again, I hate that the movie made me wonder this.
right.
But... Oh, also we passed over, I think he already did one of the funniest lines in the movie, which is when he's like, fuck Dagon. And Uchiha is like, yes.
Yes.
Like, that's the idea.
Yes, you will. She will. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, I love the fact that they do like these 4 full person burns and then they all run around Paul at the same time. Like it's a crazy stunt that one of those stunts that I just don't think you're allowed to do anymore. Like you're not allowed to set that many people on fire and then have them run around somebody else who's not on fire. I'm just not allowed to do that shit.
Sure.
But yeah, Paul tries to rescue Barbara, but it's too late. She's already been subsumed by Dagon, and then it comes back up and pulls her under anyway and takes her away.
Like rips her arms off.
Yeah, rips her off the thing she's hanging from, by her arms. And it's just like, Jesus, fuck. Like, how much?
I know. I was just kind of like, oh, okay. I thought he might actually rescue her. But...
Yeah. How much do you need to do to a person? Once again, Paul is knocked down and just, like Uchiha comes crawling to his side because she just, she's a squid lady. And
sure,
we finally meet the father, and he's wearing probably the worst mask because it's 3 masks tied into one, and they all have a beard, and the beard is not different. Like it's a terrible.
It looks like he's wearing like a raccoon skin, like on his. I could not make heads or tails, pun intended, of it at all.
It makes no sense as a disguise, and then he reveals that he's a damn Davy Jones. So
he's a Davy Jones.
Yeah. But
he's a Cthulhu Jones.
Yep, old Cthulhu Jones there. But we also get it revealed that Paul is also one of his children. So he is the half brother of Uchiha, and
which doesn't bother her at all.
No, she's into it. She is trying to make this happen.
Oh,
and he is not, and he sets himself on fire, which. Great effect. And then the follow-up of they both fall into the Dagon well, and his makeup of like he's burned alive but also a fish man is fucking crazy.
This is as I rewound the last 5 minutes of this movie and showed it to Nirvan, because I was like, look at what the fuck this is. From the moment that Uchiha strips naked and then sprint squiggles towards Paul and then tackles him. and then when they're in the water and he's like half burnt to death, but then he's like growing gills and so I was just like, this is fucking insane.
And then he just accepts it. Like she comes in to save him and just points out the fact that, hey, look, your belly gills have come in, brother. Isn't that wonderful?
Your belly.
You're a fish man now.
Yeah. And then they just swim off together deep into Dagon's hole. And that's gross to say. I shouldn't have said that.
That may be accurate.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
My one note I had after it was revealed that he is the stepbrother, I just wrote the note down, stepbrother, help, I'm stuck in a fishing net.
Love it. Because she makes it really overt too. She's like, you're my brother, you'll be my lover. And it's like, okay, like we already got the implications. You don't need to be that weird about it.
Don't be weird.
Yeah, it's super gross, but it all falls in line with a lot of the kind of Lovecraft stuff of just like gross incestuousness, gross fish people stuff. And Stuart Gordon himself is willing to go to deep, dark lengths and, go into disgusting things as well. So, yep, that's Dagon. It's no surprise.
I'll take a wild.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say I'll take your word for it on the Lovecraft stuff. I'm really not that familiar with Lovecraft stories and lore. I might become it now because I'm just curious how much of this actually is references to stuff. But
well, this is a short story. This is a Lovecraft's short story, right?
Like this story is
yeah, he gets a writing credit.
Yeah, because
oh really?
Because Stuart Gordon loves him that much. Like I think the story itself is only a couple pages. Like it's a really short story. It's not so much that like Lovecraft writes a lot of incest into his stuff. It's just like when people interpret it, they put a lot of more disgusting things into it to
like how weird can we get?
Yeah, and especially Stuart Gordon, because like Reanimator is his adaptation of a Lovecraft story, and
I don't know.
Pretty sure, he doesn't have like, the decapitated. I'm pretty sure Lovecraft didn't write a decapitated head giving head because Lovecraft is like himself just like an asexual weirdo, so like he does not have like any sense of making things sleazy and sexy, So a lot of his stories are not sleazy and sexy, but people who do adaptations add that shit in because Lovecraft is like a real weird prude.
Yeah.
Well, there is a fair amount of nudity in this movie as well.
Yeah.
From both of the leading women.
Yeah. Anything that's sleaze, you can attribute to Stuart Gordon. Anything that is, like psychic madness, that's H.P. Lovecraft.
Psychic Madness. That's a good band name.
Hell yeah.
Maybe this is like the wrong time to ask this. What is Dagon in reference to Cthulhu?
It's just a separate.
Like, what's the connection?
It's just a separate old god. Like,
oh, really? Because I swear during the prayer they literally said the word Cthulhu like multiple times. But
yeah, they do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think. It's been a while since I've read the story, but I think Dagon is just like a separate old god, and it's all like Lovecraft just has this whole menagerie of like weird old gods that he came up with of just things that like if you saw them they would drive you crazy, and I can't describe them because if I did you would go insane, but one of them is a space tornado. Ooh, isn't that terrifying? So yeah, I like a lot of his stuff. I know I'm just making fun of Lovecraft, but yeah, he's easy to make fun of. He's old. It's old 100-year writing. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
What's he gonna do?
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Yeah, what's he gonna do about it? He's dead.
Statute of limitations is up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your time is over, old man. But
I did really enjoy this movie, though. It is really, I love. I don't know if I would say it's good, but I really love a good bad movie.
Yeah.
And to me, this firmly falls into that camp. And we didn't really talk about the actors very much. They're not really famous, but like Ezra Godin, the main guy, he looked so familiar. It was driving me crazy, but I didn't recognize any of his other stuff. So all I can imagine is that maybe he just reminds me a lot of Justin Theroux, except like a lot nerdier. I liked his whole thing in this movie. It's overdone and it's stupid, but the whole like there are two possibilities and him like trying to suss out like which possibility to go towards, and his whole like you can't program life. And he's like, why not? It's a binary system. And so like all of his decisions, he tries to shoehorn into like one direction or another. And then at the end, when he burns himself, he's like, there are no possibilities. It's like, okay, like, it's like because he works on his laptop, like for his job, they have to make him think of everything in terms of computer programming language and stuff. It's just ridiculous. I was really pissed that she threw his laptop in the ocean, though. That's not cool.
Yeah, that's fucked up, especially in like 2001. That thing was thousands of dollars, and like I'm sure you this will resonate with you a lot, but like. Just all the stuff I'm a digital hoarder. Like all the things I have on my computer, I would be so upset if I had to lose any of that.
No, exactly. And he even says, like, it's not backed up. Like, I didn't have it back. I'm not backed up. And she's like, you are backed up. Like, very funny.
It's like spiritually backed up. Yeah.
Hilarious.
Not now, Barbara.
No, I would be beyond pissed if someone tossed my laptop like that.
Yeah. But that's Dagon from 2001. Yeah, like you said, it's not a good movie, but it is a watchable movie.
It is fun. And I even knew it was going to be from the opening title sequence, which is like done in like this watery font.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so fucking goofy.
It's funny. It was that I was renting it and it was like $1 more to buy it. And I was like, of course I'm going to buy it because I know I'm going to watch it again.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, it's a really good movie to like after you watch it once. It's a really good like background movie.
Yes,
just because like,
we talk about that all the time.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, like it has good vibes and it has good production design. It's just like the story progression is fucking whatever because it's just constantly Paul getting captured. Like okay, whatever, fucking move on already. Do something else.
Yeah, Paul is believably not very much of a like proactive hero,
right?
And then when he is, he always fails miserably. So
yeah.
I get that.
Yeah, it makes sense that he is a failure, but I don't know. Like, does that make a good movie?
Very compelling. Yeah. Let's watch Paul fail.
Yeah, it doesn't make a good movie to watch somebody fall in their ass all the time.
To be fair, my favorite horror franchise is Evil Dead, and I love watching Ash fail over and over and over again. So
true.
I'm okay with it. I love a flawed protagonist.
That's done for comedic effect. This is a very like.
Some of this is definitely done for comedic effect.
Some of it is. Yeah, there's definite like dark laughs in this film to be had. But yeah. It's all right. It's all right. So now we move on to our voting. And I did reach out to Brian and I told Brian to give me his rankings so we could have a proper just proper voting block to go. But as just for the audience at home, the way we usually do this is we go around and we vote on to see whose film is the best. And usually on the first round, we all vote our film, just because why would we vote against ourselves? We pick that film, why would we not pick that film in the end? But sometimes it happens. But so with that, we'll go around the horn and we'll see if everybody voted their first film. And if we didn't, we'll have a winner. But whoever wins this voting, they will get to pick the punishment film for next week's episode. And so, Sarah and Kelly, you are very much welcome to come back next week and talk about whatever the punishment film is. Whoever winds up winning, you're very much welcome to. Okay. But also, we've had guests just leave us with a turd and bail. So that happens too. So it's up to you.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. With that though, let's start voting and I'm going to give it to our guests first and we'll start with Kelly and then Sarah and then we'll go to me and Brian's votes.
Okay. So I just pick which of the four was my favorite.
Yep.
Honestly, Dagon. It's like, I just had so much fun with Dagon. It's just so up my alley in terms of just absolute stupidity. I just had a blast with it.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh
no. Okay, Sarah.
I was gonna say Dagon, but I think I'm gonna have to go with Deep Rising, and I would pick that even if it wasn't mine.
Okay. So for Brian, he obviously picked Dagon. It was his film that he brought to the show, and it's the one he wanted to do. This would usually mean that Brian would win because now he has 2 votes in the first. Except I am going to go with Deep Rising because, as I already mentioned, I wanted to do this film. It was going to be my pick, and then I took a flying leap on Sea Fever, and I kind of had the same criticisms that you guys did, that it's a little too slow of a burn, and it doesn't have enough of a big ending. Whereas Deep Rising is through and through batshit fucking sane. And I've loved this movie forever. And like I said, I wanted to do it, but I can't. So we actually wind up with a tie in the first round. So we do go to the second round.
All right.
Sorry, I was just trying to think of a punishment movie if it comes down to that. So I get to choose my second choice.
Yeah. What would be your second choice?
My movie, Underwater.
Okay.
I actually think it was a really, really good movie.
Yeah.
Like, some of these are good because they're stupid. I think that one's just a good movie.
Sure. Yeah.
So do we, second round, have to pick something other than the one we picked for the first, or does it have to be with the top two that we've?
No, it has to be of the three that are left. So,
okay, gotcha.
So we consider the first round a wash. So none of the, those movies don't win. So yeah, whatever the three you have left.
Okay. Mine's Dagon.
Okay. Brian in his second round picked Deep Rising. And so in my second round, I'm picking Underwater. Underwater is a much better paced film. Like, I like the fact that it starts off just quick and going. Like, it just starts you running and then just runs the entire film. Like, like you mentioned, it's only 90 minutes and it just goes the entire 90 minutes. And there's a lot of, the production design is great. The sound design is great. The little clues we get about the way people interact is fantastic. So yeah, I think it's strange, but it happens because, I take flying leaps on films that I've never watched before, and I've never seen Sea Fever and I've never seen Underwater. And, I didn't get a chance at Underwater or Deep Rising, so I just jumped at Sea Fever, and, it's a fine film. I like it, but, like you said, Kelly, it's probably your least liked. It was third on Brian's list. It's third on my list. It's fourth on Sarah's list. So, all right. People didn't really like Sea Fever. It's
not bad.
It's not bad. It's third on my list, but maybe it's actually fourth because Dagon is fucking wild.
Yes.
Like Underwater is great because it is just a well-made movie and it's fine.
Yeah.
But Dagon's fucking wild. So yeah, maybe I do like that more than Sea Fever. Maybe it's Sea Fever's fourth on my list. It's hard to go. Like, yeah, Dagon has boobs and weird incest and fire effects. Yeah, okay.
Got everything.
It's just not put together like a good movie. Is all.
Which makes it good. Like, that makes it better.
That adds to it.
It makes it more interesting than Sea Fever because Sea Fever is pretty formulaic. Like, problem, bigger problem, resolution. Like, Sea Fever is pretty formulaic, especially compared to everything else. I think Underwater is formulaic as well, but it's moves so fast it doesn't give you time. Like, there could have been a 20-minute setup at the beginning of Underwater where we get to learn all about Nora and all the other crew members. There could have been that, but we didn't need it. Just fucking go and we'll learn about those characters along the way. So
on the fly. Yeah.
So that means with 2 votes in the second round, Underwater is our winner for the Creatures of the Deeper Showdown. And that means, Kelly, you are our champion for the month of April, and you get to take home the belt, which is not real, and you get to pick what our punishment film is for next week.
So how does this work? Like, what punishment films have you had before?
Oh, we've had all kinds. Let's see. One of our more recent ones was I made Brian watch Danzig's second film. We've also watched Veronica as a punishment film. There's a film that, boy, is it, I just can't not talk about it sometimes, but it's a film called Goodbye. And it is a film just about poop and about poop zombies. It is a fucking crazy movie. It is disgusting. It is
What is
awful.
it called? I need to add this to the list.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Okay.
Yeah. But it's BI. So it's
Okay.
it's a play on good biome.
Okay.
And it is one of the,
That's-
it is crazy and disgusting.
Wow.
So we've done things like that. So you don't have to pick a terrible movie, but we usually pick a terrible movie.
I guess my version of terrible is just way different from. I'm just like, terrible fun, or is this actually punishment? Like, I want people to suffer because I have to watch it too, right?
Yeah. But maybe there's something that just lives in your head that you got to inflict on other people. Ron in our Discord is pointing out Veronica was straight ass, zero fun. I think there's some fun there, Ron. Oh yeah, we had to watch fucking Sharkenstein because of Dan in our Discord. So yeah, it's a real gamut of whatever you want to pick. If you have one on hand, you can tell us now, or you can let us know later, and we'll reveal it.
Okay, let me think about it.
Okay,
I'll message you.
Sure. All right. Well, with that, Kelly takes it home for the Final Girls podcast.
Very nice.
And we'll find out what her punishment is for us coming up soon, and we'll probably announce that on all the social medias. But for now, why don't you guys let us know where everybody can find you once again on all the social medias?
Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram at Final Girls the Podcast, and then Blue Sky Final Girls Podcast. And if you can't find us anywhere on the podcast platforms or social media, go to our website at final-girls.com, and you can find us there as well.
Great. Well, I want to thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't have watched, like I said, I wouldn't have watched these movies without this homework, and I'm really glad that I did. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, hey, maybe you've overcome a little bit of your fear, or maybe not, because of all the C movies. Thanks again for coming on, and we'll look forward to seeing whatever Kelly unleashes upon us. And like I said, you're welcome to come back next week too. So, and
thank you.
And maybe Brian will actually be on the show that week as well.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
But for the Halloween is Forever crew, I'm Steve.
I'm Kelly.
I'm Sarah. I'll put myself in there too.
Sorry, I'm not part of Halloween is Forever, but hi.
Bye-bye.